All right, we are finally live. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. And, well, let's be honest. We all know it's my fault. We all know it's my fault as far as the late start. So no need to blame DeAndre. No need to blame him. It's all my fault. I'll bear the burden for him today. But anyways,
What do you mean for him? This is not
hey,
my
let's,
burden.
Akhi,
This is
Akhi, let's,
this is
Akhi,
not my burden. You're not bearing the
Akhi,
burden for me. You're bearing the burden for yourself.
let's not do this again, okay? Let's not do this again. It's
No,
okay.
no, no. You're just it's just not true. You're not bearing the burden for me. You're bearing the burden for you.
We don't need to talk about whose fault it is, but anyways, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wait a minute.
What?
Wait. It's the round table, but it's on Saturday. Oh my God, something's going on. But
Yeah, something is
welcome
going on,
to
isn't it?
welcome to the round table Saturday edition. So, um, before we even get started, I forgot to give my salams. Salam alaikum, DeAndre. How you doing, Akhi?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm doing well, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Um, yeah, doing great. So, Ali, explain the Saturday dish.
So the
Alhamdulillah.
the Saturday edition of the Roundtable, it comes as through different reasons. The first reason is because originally, and this is again on me, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, I was originally going to present um a presentation about logos theology or logos philosophy, but then literally the day beforehand I began to collaborate with Brother Faisal 2.0 yesterday, and he and I are planning a joint collaboration involving Paul and the concept of Hellenism, Greek philosophy, Greek thought, and how much of an influence it played on not only the Christian faith but also the Jewish faith as well. So that these are topics that he and I are going to collaborate and go further about. So that's why I wanted to, as much as it pains me, and I know I've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks with everyone, and again, I do apologize. So we decided to wait for a couple of weeks to do so while we bring together all of our information, so we can actually give a proper, a sufficient and proper information to everyone who's listening. And that's the first thing. The second thing is because, and I don't, and you can let me know this if you agree or not. Recently, it seems like the roundtable on Fridays have been getting redundant because it seems like it's the same person showing up each time. So I actually started thinking. I actually started thinking. I said, wait, it's Friday night. People are coming back from work. People are etc. They're just getting off of the week. I remember it was either last weekend or the weekend before. We had an Islam Q&A, where people just come and ask questions, and it was a good turnout. So then I started thinking to myself, well, because we saved Saturdays for our presentation as more of our closed streams, where we just give presentation and have more of an information based stream, I started thinking, what if Saturdays are days where people are more available to come up and talk about Islam or come up and talk about um, anything, period, whether they have questions or they want to, challenge Islam, or they want to just defend their own faith. So I've, this is an experiment to see, would it be better to switch the roundtable from Fridays to Saturdays. If that means more people get to benefit, more people are available, and more people have the chance to come up. I know one of them, for example, is Chris. He's someone that I've been meaning to have a conversation with. And as a matter of fact, he's someone that I told that I would actually leave space on Saturday, since he told me beforehand that he doesn't really have much time on Fridays because he's busy. He's more available on Saturdays. So this is also, since I gave him my word that I would leave some time for him on Saturday when he is free to finish the conversation he had with me and also with you, DeAndre. So I want to be. I am a man of my word, and I want to continue that as well. So these are the reasons why we have a
I
special
kind of
edition of
forgot.
the roundtable.
I kind of forgot that I was actually gonna have a conversation
Hmm.
with Chris on, the criteria the Old Testament gives for the Jewish Messiah, and that's probably
Yeah,
something I can actually present on,
yeah.
because there's a couple of verses. So there's five criterion, and like, I guess, like, if you wants to have this discussion, anyone wants to have the discussion, or just anyone wants to ask. There's
Hmm.
five criterion, and I don't think Jesus really passes any of them. You can make an argument he passes one, but the other four are not, have been failed.
Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, and I see. I see Chris is in the public chat already. No worries, no worries. So again, welcome to the. If this is a good turnout, then we may actually switch the roundtable to the Saturdays to see how this works. So in the
yeah.
meantime, let me put the link up to see who's gonna come up. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
And again, it's not my fault, it's DeAndre's.
No, it's not.
Shh, it's okay. It's
I
okay.
was I was waiting for the link from you,
Sure you were.
so I
Sure you
was
were.
available this whole time.
Sure you were. It's okay, brother.
You can't lie to these people, man.
Yeah, I'm not lying, man.
No, you can't lie to these people, man. You
Bro,
can't do that. You can't do that to our
all
audience.
bro, are we not all dots connected? So
Exactly.
if one person is late, aren't we all late?
Well, that makes no sense, because I'm not. You're late. We're all late, but the fault of why we're late is not pinned on all of us as a brand. It's pinned on one of us as a.
Uh, is it though?
Yes, it is, because for one, I don't even have access to the account, so I couldn't start the stream. Fuad is at a wedding, and Faisal is probably doing something. So it's you and I, and it's you who has the responsibility of starting the stream and distributing the link,
What?
and you failed.
We'll talk about that later. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Yahya.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته, Brother
All right,
Yahya.
I see Chris is backstage. Let's have him on.
All right.
Hey, good evening, Chris. How you doing today?
Doing well, man. Better than deserved. Appreciate you letting me on.
No worries, no worries, no
Hopefully,
worries.
DeAndre will make sure it starts on time
See,
next
that's
time.
that's what I'm saying. That's exactly
No,
what I'm
I
Hopefully,
saying.
just
Thank
told
you,
you. I
man.
just told you. I just told you. Listen,
DeAndre,
Chris.
it's
Listen,
two it's two
Chris.
it's two
Listen,
versus one, man. It's
Chris.
okay.
That's an
yeah,
appeal to
I heard it.
popularity fallacy.
Just sounds like he's trying to make excuses and blame it on you.
What? I mean,
That's
whatever.
exactly what he's trying to do, man. You can see it, man. You can see the truth.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
Anyway,
So I do, Chris. I do remember our last conversation on Dawa Radunya you had. So I want to give you an option to choose because I know you had a conversation with me about a topic on Dawa Radunya. You had a conversation with DeAndre on Dawa Radunya, and even beforehand, you and I had a conversation about the story of in Mark. Yeah, Mark when it comes to the rich man. So these are things that I told you that we have an opportunity to finish. So it all depends on you. Which one would you want to have first, or you want to go through each at a
you're
time?
up. You're up, Chris.
Well, I haven't really. So Ali, you and I chatted kind of directly and one-on-one before. I haven't really spoken that much with DeAndre,
Okay.
so I don't mind engaging with him if he's okay with it.
Sure, 100%.
All right, go ahead.
Be-
Okay.
Uh, I'll
Oh,
let me add a
you want to start it
disclaimer.
off?
So
All right, go
because
ahead.
someone was monologuing for a little while, I only have like 20 minutes, uh,
Let,
20,
let me know.
35
Let me know
minutes.
beforehand,
So
bro. You know
I'm
what?
actually
we'll start at
glad.
8.
I'm actually
So
glad you
I'm.
let me know now, man. Because now I'm like,
Yeah.
we're getting to the meat of the matter. It's like I gotta leave, and I'm like, come on, man.
yeah,
You say
Nah,
you know what?
but
You say you got 20 minutes. Let's not waste any more time. You and
let's
DeAndre,
not.
you can go ahead.
All
yeah,
right,
20 or 30.
I got you. I got you. I got you. So I believe we left off where we were talking about Christ as far as the Jewish Messiah. So I
Oh yeah.
just don't. Yeah, yeah. So I don't want to necessarily misrepresent you. So you just like kind of state what you believe about like certain Old Testament prophecies, and then we can like I guess we'll get right into it.
Well, sorry, make sure I understand what you're asking me. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So the thing I was bringing up
Hmm.
to maybe connect the dots, so to speak, on what we were talking about, is that Islam does not seem to have a high view of the Messiah, and that's what we were talking about. Is how does the Quran view the Messiah? How important he is? Those kind of things we were talking about. And what I emphasized, or what I was trying to emphasize, is that the Old Testament, as well as the New, puts a significant emphasis on the Messiah, on the Redeemer. And we start talking about what it means to be anointed and all this other kind of stuff. And one of the things that, to answer your question more directly, DeAndre, one of the things that I think of that absolutely removes me from being a Muslim or even it being an option is that the Old Testament makes many, many promises. Some of those promises are related to the Messiah, what he will do, what he won't do, in essence, who he will be. And one of the things that I brought up, one prophecy that I brought up, was Genesis 3:15, and then I asked the question: in Islam, who fulfills Genesis 3:15? And there's many other prophecies, Psalm 110, Isaiah 53, etc.
Right.
Salam
I got you.
alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, I got you. So I guess
Wa
we can
alaikum
Yeah,
start
assalam.
Ridwan's
by
here. What's up, man?
yeah, assalamu alaikum brother Rabban. So I guess we
Assalamu
can
alaikum,
start
brothers.
by kind of discussing, right? Maybe I said this, maybe I didn't. I think I'm pretty sure I told you about Mashiach and the Old Testament understanding, or from at least the Jewish understanding, because I mean, obviously you don't believe that's the Old Testament understanding is in line with what I think it is. So I think that, like, as far as the Islamic concept of Mashiach, we kind of believe in the same thing as the Jews do, that it's a specific person that is anointed to do a specific task. Whether that task is to redeem, I have no issue actually granting that, because we believe that Jesus, alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon him, he will redeem us in a way from the false Messiah, the Antichrist. So there's no problem with that. I have no issue with that. I think the Islamic narrative is more in line. I didn't say like it completely affirms all of what's in the Old Testament. I stated that it is more in line with the Old Testament concept rather than like a salvific figure. And I don't believe the Old Testament attests to a salvific figure. I think the Old Testament places more emphasis on what the Messiah will do rather than like who he is. It's like, yeah.
Okay,
Go on.
I follow. So then, maybe fair question for me to ask you: are you
Mm-hmm.
familiar with the prophecies that are attributed to the Lord Jesus Christ?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So with that being said, this is the same thing I would say to a Jewish person, maybe no surprise. There's no one else in history who even comes close to fulfilling the prophecies other than the Lord Jesus Christ. And those prophecies are so specific that they give you a specific time period, namely the temple would have to be there. And it gives you specific criteria of things that the Messiah couldn't control, like where he was born, how he was born, those kind of things. So when you say you believe it like a Jew does, and this is something that I kind of bump heads with Fawad about, there are Jews, maybe obvious, that do believe Jesus is the actual Messiah. Those Jews were Christians, or they became Christians. And when I use the word Jew, I'm using it how the Bible does, as an ethnicity, not as a religion. So, DeAndre, when you say that you take a position that essentially Jewish people would take, be more specific. Are you saying Orthodox Jews? Are you saying Reformed Jews? Are you saying etc.? Like, what do you mean?
I got you. So maybe I should kind of rephrase that. I didn't say necessarily that a Jew would take on this matter, because Jews have varying positions on the issue. I would say
Sure.
that as far as Old Testament, I do take like what the typical like religious Jewish interpretations like kind of orate. I do believe that the prophecies in question do not necessarily apply to Jesus. I have no issue with them applying to Christ, but I don't think that they do, just from a hermeneutic standpoint. And obviously, I think that there is a criteria that is also given by the Tanakh that I don't think Jesus actually fulfills as well. So I mean, there's many facets to kind of get into this conversation.
No, that's fair. Then I'll give you one where I think he does fulfill, and I love to hear the one you're thinking of where you believe he doesn't fulfill it.
Mm-hmm.
So the one that I brought up, and probably the one I'll kind of stick with, is Genesis 3:15. I can
Okay.
read it, or you can read it, and we can start from there.
Yeah. You can read it, and then like I guess just explain, because I mean obviously it's kind of explain how Christ in a way fulfills this. What is your interpretation of the text, so I can
Sure.
kind of get to know what your interpretation is. I don't want to misrepresent your interpretation.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I will try my best. So Genesis 3, and I'm explaining this not for you, DeAndre, but for people watching, maybe they don't know. So Genesis 3 is the account of the fall of man, or at least the judgment that comes after the fall of man. The fall was um, in 3, but there may be options to say maybe it was somewhere in 2 as well. I don't know. But anyway, the fall of man and the judgment is in Genesis 3. And in that judgment, God judges 3 individuals, Adam, Eve, and then Satan. In Genesis 3:15, and I'm reading from the NASB, it says, "And I will put enmity," speaking to Satan, "and I will put enmity between you and the woman," that being Eve, "and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel." So my interpretation is that this is speaking about a figure, and I'm willing to call this figure a redeemer because of what this individual brings back, namely restoring relationship between God and man. But this figure is a result of the enmity or hostility of humanity and the unrighteous seed and the righteous seed. That might be a better way to say it, because it speaks of 2 groups: the seed of the woman, which I would argue are those who have the faith of the woman, namely believers, and then the seed of the serpent, those who don't have the faith of the woman, those who have a faith like Satan, namely that they rebel against God. And then it uses a singular pronoun, he, speaking of a war, if you will, between the serpent, which is Satan, and that's what the Bible brings out, that this serpent is being used by Satan, that the seed, the he, will war against the serpent and defeat the serpent. That's the crushing of the head. And though the one who fights against the serpent, the he, will be wounded, wounded in such a way that it's noticeable. And as the biblical story unfolds, redemptive history unfolds, we learn that this is ultimately Christ. The New Testament in Romans 16 brings out this heel, uh, this crushing done by the heel, and attaches that to the church, which is the body of Christ. And of course, that attaches it to Jesus' death. That would be the wound. His resurrection from the dead is a proof of his triumph over the evil one.
Okay, is that your interpretation?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of issues with that. The first being, like, do you know what the Jewish interpretation of this passage is?
I have an idea,
Okay.
so I could say I'm partially familiar with it, but as far as I
Like,
know, they would take a
what do you know about
redemptive
this?
view as well. Hmm?
What do you know, like, about this about their interpretation of this verse?
From the Old Testament or from Jewish rabbinic
No,
sources?
from Jewish commentators like Rashi and those guys, like rabbinic sources, like the general
Not
Jewish
much.
interpretation. I'll rephrase. Do
Not
you
much.
like what do you know? Oh, okay. So the general interpretation is there are some commentators who say that it is messianic, but they have a completely different understanding. So the Jews don't actually believe the serpent is Satan. And obviously the Christians believe so, because in Revelations 12:9 it's actually described, that the dragon was cast down, that serpent of old, the devil and Satan. But Jews don't actually like have this concept. So what they think generally, and I'm speaking generally, of course you can find a Jew who disagrees, but what the commentators think is that Genesis 3:15 is referring to someone, a Messiah, of course, who will kind of end the enmity between the seed of the serpent, which is snakes, and the seed of the woman, which is humans. And they will actually end up defeating the serpent. Yeah. And they will actually end up defeating the serpent. And they kind of say that because in Isaiah 11:7-8, it says like the infants will play with snakes, meaning it's kind of ending the enmity between snakes and humans, which has persisted forever. I mean, because who the hell isn't like pissing their pants afraid of snakes? Except for that guy in the woods. It's like, I'm gonna pick up a snake and I'm gonna eat it. Like so I think that's the Jewish interpretation. So I guess my question to you is, what makes your interpretation more hermeneutically sound, if you get what I'm asking?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a totally fair question. Two things. It's one, so this passage in Christian theology is considered the proto-evangelium, just a fancy word to say the first gospel. This is a promise, maybe obvious, given to those present, Adam and Eve, and then the serpent as well, about a coming defeat of this evil one. So this evil one did two things: lied about God, or lied on God, and brought death into the world. So when you bring up Revelation, there's another connection that happens in John chapter 8, where Jesus says that Satan was a murderer from the beginning. And that's related to the lie he told, or the deception that he used against Eve to cause her to want to eat from the fruit. And then Adam did the same thing. It brings sin and death. So the reason I believe my hermeneutic is more sound is that this first gospel is given to mankind. And what we see, like in Job, with Abraham and other patriarchs, they actually look back to this promise, or they keep a reminder of this promise. Even when you get to Genesis chapter 4 and Genesis chapter 5, they're actually looking for this he that will crush the head of the serpent. That's, in a sense, the whole point of the genealogies. As they explain the death of such and such, it's saying that these ones died, therefore they could not be the head crusher, because they died before the enmity and the war would transpire, and the defeat of the serpent has not happened yet. Does that make sense? That's a short answer.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't
We can go through
necessarily
some texts, but I was just sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I got you. I can grant you, right? But that doesn't necessarily, because like, I mean, the patriarchs could say, the same thing, that they're waiting for the Messiah to come and crush the enmity between humans and snakes. So I don't see how that kind of like adds more basis to interpretation that it's Christ. The evidence you gave, it could go either way. Jews can kind of say the same. It's like these guys do know what the Messiah will do, and it kind of could go either way with those interpretations. Like, it doesn't necessarily give more credibility to yours over theirs. Yeah,
Let
what's
me.
up?
I think it does. Let me ask you this question: what would be the point of, if the Jewish, meaning rabbinic, tradition is true? What would be the point of the patriarchs looking for a special he in the first place? And if you need a passage, I can give you one. But
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't see how this is kind of like they're looking for a he. Like, if you're talking about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, etc., they're looking for that type of person, that type of Messiah. Because, I mean,
okay.
as we find in the Tanakh, the Messiah is said to do certain things, and the Messianic age is said to act a certain way. That doesn't mean like they're
Hmm.
looking for a salvific figure that will atone or anything like that. It doesn't necessarily, because like if you were a patriarch,
Which means,
peace and blessings, people. I'll explain. So, like, obviously, the patriarchs, they would know. Like in John 8:56, it says, Christ, Abraham saw the day of the Messiah. So Abraham would know, obviously, because he's a prophet. Abraham would know that there's a Messiah that's going to come, that's going to do this and this and this.
hmm
But he could be looking for that Messiah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's Christ, right? Because he could be looking for the Messiah, because Abraham could be given revelation about this Messiah will do this, and this Messiah will do this, and this Messiah will do this. So Abraham is saying, when is this Messiah going to come? And then when we get to it later, like you mentioned, Job, etc., then, I mean, I think there's an issue of dispute when Job was written, but I have little knowledge on that. I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
So I don't think it adds credibility to your interpretation unless, like, the passage you're saying is talking about, like, a salvific figure who will atone for sin, in which case, yes, if the patriarchs understood that there will be such a figure, then, yeah, we can get to that. But, like, when you mention Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they didn't, like, even if they were looking for a special someone, it doesn't disqualify the Jewish interpretation.
I do see what you mean. Here's the difference. When we talk about the Messiah, and even just isolating it to who this person is that Genesis 3:15 is talking about, the focus is throughout all of the Old Testament, the focus is on the seed. And you should, if you read the Old Testament, follow the seed. Genesis chapter 4. I'm trying to think how much of this I want to bring up because I don't want us to get lost, but I'll just try to explain. We can go to text if you need me to. Genesis chapter 4, it speaks about Cain and Abel. And Eve is demonstrating and showing faith. And I'll just read verse 1. It says in Genesis 4:1, and I'll connect the dots as I talk about it. And I'll keep it short. But
Making
in
all these
Genesis
puns,
4:1,
man. Dots connected dots. I'm just playing. Continue.
not intended, but it's fitting. So it says, now the man had relations with his wife Eve, and she conceived and gave birth to Cain, obviously, who is a male. And she said, I have gotten a man child with the help of the Lord. So there's a focus on a male, a he, and that is because of the promise that God gave Adam and Eve. And then when you get to Genesis 12, there is another focus. And let me actually say this before that, there's a righteous line that is being demonstrated through Seth, etc. And there's an unrighteous line that is also being demonstrated through Cain. And there's actually two Enochs, one on the righteous side and one on the unrighteous side. And then God, in a sense, changes the focus not to show both lines, but to focus on the righteous line or the righteous line of the seed or the righteous seed line. And then you get this focus on Abraham after the Tower of Babel, which is super important. And in Genesis 12 and I'll land after I read this part. In Genesis 12, it just starts with, now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And I will I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. So now God is focusing on this seed, namely Abraham. And then Abraham is told that his offspring, which is Hebrew, another word for seed, will have basically special privilege. This is why I'm saying my hermeneutic or my interpretation is more sound, is that actually fits with the biblical narrative given in the Old Testament of focusing on men, male figures, and their offspring or their seed.
Yeah, but
Not-
like,
but
oh,
I
okay. I'm
think
sorry. Go on.
no, that was it. Sorry.
Oh, somebody snoring? What the heck?
It literally sounds like someone snoring.
Is that someone in your background, Chris?
I hope not, because no one's in my office.
It's
so
Ali. It's Ali in it. It's Ali in it.
I don't know.
Ali, you asleep? Anyway, I'm just joking. Yeah, but like the thing is, maybe I knew it. I knew it. Yeah, so I guess my response to that would be, obviously the Jews believe, the Messiah will be a man. Like, the Messiah will be a he.
Good.
So,
But then you have to ask why? Where did they get that from? I would say it also came from Genesis 3:15. But it's all right. I should let you keep going.
of course, yeah,
Well,
of
keep
course,
going.
they can say that, right? They can say that. They can say, yeah, we did get it from Genesis 3:15, or they could say we got it from, other passages in the Tanakh. But the thing is, like, when you say, Eve was grateful that she had a man, and Abraham, the righteous seed of Abraham, no problem. I don't see how this kind of, because this could be used, this isn't like in support of an interpretation over the other, because Jews and Christians both believe that the Messiah, he will be a man, right? But it's on what the Messiah will do. And so, like, if Genesis 3:15, your interpretation is that Christ will fulfill this in the sense that he will what's the word, he will claim victory over Satan by resurrecting, and he will crush Satan's head by resurrecting, but he will be wounded in the sense that he was allegedly crucified. But but Jews don't believe that, and your evidence for your interpretation can be used to support, or doesn't really add much credibility to yours, because the main difference between yours and the Jewish interpretation is, what will this Messiah do? Will he, resurrect, and that's how he will fulfill this? Or will he just kill the snakes? Or will he just end the enmity between humans and snakes? Just like it says in Isaiah 11 that the infant will play with, cobras and snakes and things like that.
Yep, I follow what you're saying now. You explain that well. So here's another reason why I would definitely say
All right.
the interpretive line I'm using is much more sound. One, other than Isaiah 11, and there's another passage in Isaiah that speaks about a fiery serpent as well. So definitely is serpent language in Isaiah, and I think you're right about Isaiah 7. It talks about Isaiah 11 speaks about a kid will be able to play over the hole of a cobra or something like that. But that is one about the eschatological end, meaning the new heavens and the new earth. And that's also recapitulated, which just means told or said again in Isaiah 65. But what I think you're missing is you don't see a common theme in the other prophets talking about serpent death. That's not a characteristic attached to the messianic prophecies in the Old Testament for the ones that are clearly messianic, like Psalm 110. It doesn't talk about crushing, or Psalm chapter 2. It doesn't talk about crushing serpents and destroying all, snakes and serpents all over the world. It literally talks about crushing enemies. And so, like same thing with Daniel chapter 7. It's not talking about crushing snakes and getting rid of them. It's literally talking about crushing enemies. That's, basically Daniel's prophecy, right? Is he's looking to this male figure who will destroy all other kingdoms that try to come against the kingdom of God, the true kingdom. So throughout the Old Testament, you're not getting this big picture of a person who's destroying snakes. You're getting a big picture of people, or of a person who destroys people who come against God and his anointed. And so when you say Jews don't believe that, again, you got to remember, Jew is a ethnicity. It's not a religion. So Jesus was Jewish. We can't say he didn't believe what he preached. Hopefully you wouldn't say that. Paul was a Jew. Peter was a Jew. I can bring up plenty of Jews who hold to what I'm saying. So it will be more fair if you said Orthodox Jews, or those who practice Orthodox Judaism don't believe or interpret this. But again, you still have to follow the seed, and you still have to give me an Old Testament text, or meaning show me in the Old Testament where it's emphasizing that the Messiah will destroy serpents. I don't see that.
I mean, so you pointed to Genesis 3:15, which is exactly what. It's not necessarily that he will destroy serpents, but rather he will kind of end the enmity between humans and between serpents, because, like, the Jewish view, the Orthodox Jewish view, their general rabbinic view, is that, well, first of all, they don't hold to the belief that the serpent is Satan, because that's not, to my knowledge, not mentioned in the Old Testament. It's mentioned in the New Testament in Revelations 12:9. Sure, it is, 100%. But that like they don't hold to the serpent being Satan. They think that the serpent is just a serpent, and ever since the serpent lied to Eve, humans and snakes have been at war. So the Messiah will end that enmity probably by declaring war on serpents to the point where humans are not at war with serpents, and serpents are not going to bite kids who play in the hole of their, babies who play in the hole of their snake things. So the thing is, like, there's passages in the Tanakh about, like it's in Isaiah 65 as well, but that's kind of their view, and you're kind of not necessarily providing any credibility for yours over there. Because I understand your point that, there are certain passages that are messianic that talk about, the Messiah destroying people that are not aligned with God. And obviously, I'm not going to get to you on Daniel 7. As far as Daniel 7, I'll just tell you to watch the presentation I did. And we can talk about that another day. But yeah, I don't really see how like this kind of adds credibility, because the big difference between your interpretation and their interpretation, and when I say there, I mean the Orthodox Jews or the general rabbinic view.
Yeah.
The difference is you both believe that the guy would be a man. You both believe that this Messianic. However, what you differ is what it means by it will crush the serpent. That's where you kind of differ, right? Because you say that it means that he will take victory over Christ, but they don't say that. They say it means that he will end the enmity between humans and serpents, to the point where serpents will not bite humans anymore, to the point that kids can play in the hole of the cobra, and the snake will not bite back because there will be no enmity. So I guess
go ahead.
go on.
So
what's up? Go on.
Isaiah, let me read this for everybody to know what DeAndre is talking about. In Isaiah 11, verse 8, it says, "The nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra, and the weaned child would put his hand on the viper's den." And then verse 9 says, "They will not hurt or destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." So again, as I mentioned, recapitulated in Isaiah 65, where it says there will be no violence on Zion, etc., etc. Here's what I think, DeAndre, you're missing. And what I'm trying to convey. The biblical narrative is not putting a focus on snakes and serpents getting destroyed. The biblical narrative, meaning when you read the Old Testament, and so I would, hold the Orthodox Jews' feet to the fire, so to speak, and say, show me where God puts an emphasis on the Messiah destroying snakes. They wouldn't be able to go anywhere. I mean, and again, I'm not saying that it's just mentioned, because you're right. Genesis 3:15 obviously mentions that. Isaiah 11 obviously mentions that. And maybe you can point to one or two other passages, but that is out of many, 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 many texts. Again, you got to think about Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, all these other different prophets who are speaking about the Messiah, Moses himself. They're not speaking about this future Messiah coming, or this Redeemer to come, as though he's going to be running around killing snakes. That is not the narrative that we pick up when we read the Old Testament. I hope you would agree with that. What we see consistently is that God's kingdom and his king are established, and they are the kingdom and the king are insurmountable. They are invulnerable. He, the king, and his kingdom is invincible. And this head crushing, this is what I think is kind of funny, because I think you would have room to mock this. It, in essence, would be saying that this serpent is not just a single serpent. The serpent in Genesis 3:14 and 15 actually is representative of all serpents and snakes throughout time. That's not what the text says, though, right? The text is specific. It's speaking about a specific serpent. It doesn't say serpents, plural, right? It says serpent. And not only that, it says that in verse 14, so the Lord God said to the serpent. So this he and this his is not plural, it's singular. This is another reason why Christians and people who are reasonable in general are not thinking this is a war against all serpents because there's no plural for serpent there. So I ask you this: if you're willing to, accept that position, how do you get universal serpent destruction out of Genesis 3:15?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that I'll respond, and obviously I'll give you a chance to respond because I don't think you have enough time. And there's another passage that because you mentioned Ezekiel, and I think we should get to other things. However,
Mm,
I am going to respond to a couple of things you said. I'm not going to try to go on a tangent. There's two specific points that you mentioned.
mm,
The Jews, Orthodox Jews, general rabbinic view, they
sure.
also believe that when the Mashiach comes, his kingdom will be insurmountable because he
Mm,
will be from David's line and he will do all these things. As far as serpent, which is it's a good objection, but it's not sound. And the reason I say that is because I have no problem with saying that this is a serpent. This isn't representing all the snakes. And the reason I say that is because in Genesis 3:15, God says that there will be enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. Meaning
mhm,
the serpent's seed is what? The serpent's seed is if the serpent he does what he does, and his seed are his descendants, which are snakes. So there is enmity between the seed of the woman, which is humans, because we're all descendants from Adam, peace be upon him, and Eve, peace be upon her. We all are descended from them in the similar way that all snakes are descended from the serpent. So if God is talking to a singular serpent, which of course he is, he's saying, just like he's talking to one woman, that there will be enmity between the seed of the woman, which is all humans, and the seed of the serpent, which is all snakes. And I'm not saying like all of the snakes, will be wiped out. I'm saying what will happen from the Jewish perspective, Orthodox Jewish perspective, is that Messiah will wage war on snakes and it will end the enmity between humans and snakes. Because in Isaiah 11, it would make no sense if like all the snakes were dead, and the infant will be able to play in the hole of the cobra, right?
right.
So from the Orthodox Jewish perspective, what will happen is that the Messiah, the human, will end the enmity, probably by just ending the enmity, probably waging war on the serpents. Any serpents that are there, they will no longer have enmity towards humans. But that's not necessarily like, the serpent, the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman are going to be at enmity. So all of the seed of the serpent, that one serpent, are all of the snakes, and all of the seed of the woman are the humans. Yeah,
Uh,
you can respond.
Appreciate it. I like what you did with that. I actually give you credit. That was reasonable, but it didn't hop all the way over the fence. Here's the reason why. And you rightly stated some of what I'm basically going to repeat. It does speak about a hostility between, let's say, a group of serpents or a group of serpent-like individuals is what I would say. Let's just go with what you said. A group of serpents and against humanity, if that is the understanding of the seed of the woman. But here's how you got to hop over the fence. The only way you can. You have to say, who is the he? Is the he, because again, it goes from plural, if you're willing to say that, it goes from plural, humanity and all these snakes, and then it focuses in on two people or two individuals, the serpent and the serpent crusher. You still have to give an identity to this he. And what I think you only can do is you will have to say, okay, this serpent from Genesis chapter 3, he is alive and he has been living as a serpent for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. 6,000 years is what I would say, about 6,000 years. He's been living for about 6,000 years. And one day, this he is going to come back, find that serpent somewhere in China, or find that serpent somewhere in Japan or wherever, and then, smash his head, right? You're going to have to be ultra literal. if you want to hold the view that you're trying to hold, versus the interpretation I'm providing, which I would say is absolutely more sound, that this serpent is representative of the enemy of the Redeemer or of the head crusher, and then also an enemy of the woman and humanity at large. Because what we're seeing is that the seed or seeds, to make it more simple in English, the seeds are acting in light of the ones that they are the seed of. So the seed of the woman is at war with the seed of the serpent because they are at odds with one another in how they conduct themselves. The seed of the serpent is against God because the serpent was against God. And then the seed of the woman is actually trying to be obedient to God and for God because the woman is. And this he who is from the righteous line versus the he who is the head of the unrighteous line, they are going to have a final, if you will, battle. And that singular he is who you have to identify, DeAndre. And if you can't tell me who that specific he is, you can talk about all the snakes in the world all day long, but you have to identify who's the he that will have their head crushed. Who's that?
Okay. So I'm gonna respond to something that you said, right? You said that for me to hold the position that I'm holding, I would have to say that the serpent is actually still alive, and the Messiah is gonna find the serpent, and he's gonna kill the serpent, and that's how he's gonna end enmity between humans and snakes. But what's the issue with that? Like I see no problem in that. Now, as far as identifying who the he is, and again, I think this brings us back full circle. I would say that the Old Testament tells us what he does and not necessarily who he is. It tells us characteristics of him. Like he will be from David's line, he will be righteous, he will be God-fearing, but it more
Oh,
so
sorry. I meant the he of the his, the one whose head is crushed, not the he that will crush the head. That's what I meant by the
Oh,
he.
okay. Yeah, the serpent that was speaking to Adam. What's the issue with saying, because any Jew could be like, well, Orthodox Jew, any Orthodox Jew could be like, yeah, well, I mean, yes, that's the serpent that was speaking to Adam, and he's alive, and God, the Messiah, is gonna find him, and he's gonna kill him, and when he kills him, all of his seed is gonna not have enmity towards humans. That's how he's gonna end the enmity, by killing that serpent. I I
So,
don't see the problem.
so you're willing to grant that a creature that has scales and slithers on the ground has been alive for over 6,000 years. You're willing to say that?
I see no problem with that. God can God can keep him alive. I see no issue with that. What's the issue?
And now, in a sense, now you have to then attach this promise of forever living for this serpent that apparently, I guess, in a sense, can survive any and everything that has happened in the world. You would end up having to grant much more than what the text actually gives you. It would
Okay.
sound like,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and
Good.
just one
I'm
more
sorry.
thing, it would sound like you're giving me a ground for this being a symbol or a metaphor for someone who's not actually a serpent that has scales and slithers on the ground and has to eat and all this other stuff. Serpents don't live that long.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. I guess I'll kind of articulate my overarching point by saying this. My point is very simple.
Mm,
My point is that there's two interpretations.
sure.
There's the Christian interpretation and the Jewish interpretation. My point is, each one of them is true. Each one of them can be true. So it's up to you to prove the truthfulness of your interpretation over theirs. So my point is that if each interpretation is equally plausible, then the prophecy doesn't really meet the criteria, because think about it. God inspires prophecy for what? God wants us to know when things are going to happen. And it's going to be like, it has to be in a way where we can identify who it is. So, like, let's say if I say, you know, let's say if I say the world will end after the sun rises in the east. You're going to tell me, okay, well, what do you mean? The sun rises in the east every day. How the hell is this helpful? But if I tell you it's gonna rise, it's gonna end, before or after the sun rises in the west, then you can pinpoint who exactly it is. So if there's two equally plausible interpretations, then the prophecy can't necessarily be proven to point to a particular person, and so you at least have to concede that there are two interpretations that are valid and that are
Wow.
equally plausible.
So I don't know. I'll ask anyway, just to, I guess, to verify. You're willing to appeal to a miraculous, thousands of year preserving, life preserved snake that slithers on the ground, that is being held, I guess, captive and alive as a snake, physically with scales slithering on the ground, for the
Mhm.
Messiah to one day find that snake and crush the head. You're willing to appeal to that as being equally plausible to what I actually mentioned about it being a symbol or metaphor for the serpent, who's actually Satan, a spiritual being, instead of this 6,000-year-old snake.
You know
You're
what,
saying
Yes.
yes?
There
guys? I'm a little bit
Amazing.
You guys lost me like a couple of minutes ago. So for the I don't exactly what is the claim that that both you guys are making? If you guys can remind me, because I'm a little bit lost as to the
I got
conversation.
you. I got you. So it's about Genesis 3:15, right? And so we're having a conversation about the Christian and Jewish interpretation of Genesis 3:15, and I'm saying that if the Christian and Jewish interpretation are both equally plausible, and there's no, like, I'm not saying the Jewish interpretation is more in line than the Christian interpretation. I'm saying you would have to kind of prove that one interpretation is more biblical or hermeneutically sound than the other. And if you can't necessarily do that, then you would have to concede that both interpretations are valid, and so it doesn't definitively apply to Christ. You
I did
following,
do
Ali?
that.
You did do that?
Yeah, and let me add to something you said, DeAndre.
I mean,
And what I was saying, and what DeAndre said is correct. But to add to it, I was mentioning that this points to a head crusher, nickname basically, that eventually leads to Christ, because all the patriarchs are looking for a male figure that will defeat the serpent, basically. And so DeAndre, as he mentioned, says that Jews, Orthodox Jews, have a understanding that basically universally snakes will be subdued or killed off, versus what I would argue is the biblical interpretation, that this is speaking about an individual who in this case is represented as a serpent, that will be defeated when the Messiah returns or comes back.
so I guess my only question is this: if you're if you're saying that, well, Chris, are you saying this is a specific serpent? What is that? I want to get your before I say anything. What is your who are you saying the serpent is exactly? Are you saying the serpent is Satan?
Yeah, and DeAndre rightly mentioned that the Bible, the New Testament specifically identifies the serpent as Satan. So yeah, of course, I
Okay.
would say it's
All right, awesome. So when it says I will put enmity between you and the woman and between your offspring and hers, he will crush your head and you will strike his heel. So obviously what I want to understand is this. If you do you believe do you hold to the position that because of what Adam and Eve because of what Adam and Eve did, they represent mankind? Do you hold to that position?
I would say Adam represented mankind, not Adam and Eve, but Adam
So
did.
so Eve did not represent mankind.
No.
Okay. So wait. Yeah, I'm on the. So if they don't represent,
You're
if
talking about federal
Adam represents,
headship?
pardon me. No,
Are
I'm
you?
talking about
Oh,
the symbolism of this idea of a serpent, because the serpent itself, because it's not explicitly said. I'm just trying to understand, because it's not explicitly said about who exactly, as far as what the Messiah is concerned with this, is this: why can't the serpent be a follower, or someone who is quote unquote a follower of Satan, or someone who does the work of Satan in that kind of case, meaning a disbeliever? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
yeah, DeAndre,
Like somebody
and
who is,
not to
yeah,
misrepresent you, DeAndre.
somebody
Oh,
who
go ahead.
symbolizes that. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I take that position. What DeAndre was positing, and he didn't say that he specifically takes this position, but he was presenting it as an alternative to what I was saying, that it's not
Mm,
representative. It's a literal creature that is roaming around somewhere, and Adam didn't step on the creature's head. I mean, to me, it seems weird. I'm adding some to the argument, DeAndre. Sorry, but it seems weird that DeAndre would say it's equally plausible when I think DeAndre, like if I,
mm.
held his hands real tight, he would say, "All right, Adam could have crushed his head as soon as God got done talking to him, right?" Or Cain could have found the serpent and crushed his head, right? Right. Anybody, anybody could have become the head crusher because the serpent's right there. So if it's really just about
I mean,
someone
I mean,
finding this snake and crushing his head, anybody could have did it. It no longer is necessary to wait 10,000 or to wait 6,000 years, 2,000 years or so to make it happen.
so
Just making sense. 4,000 years. Sorry.
DeAndre, let me know.
Yeah, so
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I was assuming this entire time that because you hold to the position that it could be talking about not just one particular thing. There are many different um plausible
Options.
points, or plausible options that are,
yeah.
sorry, options that are plausible, and you were just using this. Are you saying this with that this could be plausible, or are you saying this definitively? Which side are you lean on? Because I was
No, no,
assuming
no,
you
no, no,
meant
no.
it's plausible.
Yeah, it is. So let me just kind of clarify my point. Like I'm not saying their interpretation is correct, right? I'm
Right.
not
Okay.
saying that.
I
I'm
get
not
that.
saying that. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is that there's two interpretations. Now, if you now this is the thing. You have an interpretation, person X has an interpretation. There are two interpretations. But here's the problem: you would have to prove that your interpretation is more sound than the other. Like if I give an example, like for instance, if if I was to take a random biblical passage and I was to say, I think this means that, like if I was to, I don't know, if I was to take some random biblical passage, which is obviously, like is obviously taken out of context, and I was to say this means this. Obviously, we can examine the context and we can say, okay, well, your interpretation makes no sense, but in light of the context. But
Mm-hmm.
there's two possible interpretations. You haven't necessarily proven that yours is the correct one. And because of that, my point is that you cannot say this definitively applies to Christ if there's two possible alternative interpretations. There's no like contextual nuances with those interpretations, the way you can say this makes no sense in light of the context, or this makes no sense in light of the chapter before, or a couple verses later. So you kind of just have to prove your interpretation over the other, and if you fail to meet that burden of proof, you can't say that this is definitively about Christ. You would have to concede that there's two possible interpretations. You choose the one that you have, but that doesn't mean it's correct, and I'm fine with that. You can concede that, and we can move on.
Mm.
Yeah. So I guess probably my best follow up would be, as a Muslim, how do you understand this to be fulfilled apart from Orthodox Jews or Rabbinic Judaism, what they say? That would be my first follow up. The second thing I would say as a follow up is absolutely my position, and what I just laid out is much more reasonable and plausible. Why? because the Bible backs up the information I just gave you. It literally backs up the reality that God is bringing about an anointed one, bringing about a someone who will destroy the enemies of God. And this passage has two groups in view, wicked and righteous.
Yeah,
Because that is the case, DeAndre, the
how does that differ though,
the
Chris? Because
uh,
Can I?
oh, go ahead.
I do apologize for interrupting you. I'm still
Okay.
trying to figure out how would that be different than what the Jews believe. Because what I'm thinking right now is the Jews can actually agree with you, Chris. Like
That's
the Orthodox Jews,
exactly my
they can actually
point.
agree with you. They could think that and as a matter of fact, based on the concept of the Messiah, they do they do hold to the position that when the Messiah comes, all falsehood, all those who practice falsehood, they will see the truth, etc., etc. So I'm still trying to figure out where's the separation between what the Orthodox Jews would say, what the Christians said, because in my opinion, it's not about this. Both of you guys can have the same understanding and have a different understanding of what a Messiah is, and then differ. But if you without that difference of understanding about who or what the Messiah is, then the Jews can actually agree with you guys. This concept that you're having can both be shared by you guys and the Orthodox Jews because the that's exactly what the Jews said that their Messiah will do. So I'm still trying to figure out
Okay.
where's the difference here as far as the concept is concerned. Because it seems to me it's more of a concept of who the Messiah or what is a Messiah versus what this verse is talking about.
Can I jump in real quick? So I will just answer your question. I think you mentioned the fact that in light of this verse, how do Muslims look at this? So
That's
we
right.
Muslims, I would say the reason why we believe in Jesus, peace be upon him, is because it was mentioned in the Quran, not because it was mentioned in the Bible. That's number one. And
Mm.
number two, the reason why we believe in a second coming is because Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him,
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
mentioned about his second coming in his authentic narration. And of course, when it comes to the task or what he will be accomplishing in his second coming, it's also highlighted in the hadith. We have exclusive or explicit things in which he will get done when he returns. So the reason why we believe in what Jesus would do and what will be his role or what was his role in the first place when he was on earth was because it was mentioned in the Quran and in the hadiths, not because it was mentioned in the Bible at all. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
No,
So
I get that, and I could have assumed that. The difference is you would have to then be saying, oh, this verse doesn't matter. That's basically what you just said.
Yes, it doesn't really matter. It has no bearing on our faith. If
So
it's not in the Bible, one second. If it's not
yeah.
in the Bible, we'll still believe in a second coming. If it's not in the Bible, we still believe he's gonna come and kill the Antichrist, which we call the Dajjal. You understand? Regardless if this is mentioned or not. You understand? So if it's there or not there, it has no bearing on our faith or whatsoever.
Yeah, like I said, totally get
yeah.
that
I
part.
mean,
The
yeah,
difference is
yeah.
this. The God
In a
of the
nutshell,
Bible,
in,
I
in a
get it.
nutshell,
I
he's
get what you're
saying
saying.
that yeah, he's saying that as a Muslim, we would not have a Muslim stance on anything.
Yeah, we're
Cannot,
not
yeah.
necessarily like we're not obligated to say this has any fulfillment at all. We're
No,
just
that's
having a
fair. I understand
conversation
that.
about the Old Testament, right? Because I obviously take to a position. So I'm not saying like, because even if this did apply to Christ, I mean, no problem. I mean, I don't see the issue. But I'm just saying that absence of, because we don't have a stance on this. It could be fulfilled in Christ. It could not be. They're both equally possible, and it's yeah. That's our stance. What
So
the
here,
heck
By the way,
he-
Assalamu alaikum
here's
warahmatullah. Can you
Wa
guys hear me
alaikum
clear?
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa
yeah,
barakatuh.
Wa
perfect.
Yeah,
alaikum salam wa
clear,
rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah,
clear.
that's
Yeah,
good.
we're hearing you a little
Walaikum
bit too
salam wa
clear,
rahmatullahi
Akhi.
wa barakatuh.
Oh my
If you want
gosh.
to take the
Ali
microphone.
was having all the fun, Chris. I ruined his party today. Sorry.
Oh no,
By the way,
it was
I
Chris,
Deandra's
do got to
conversation,
drop.
man.
yeah. By the
Uh,
way, we're missing you on the Tanakh stream. You're not you've missed the last one. And
Exactly.
you weren't there. Yeah.
Are
We're
you
gonna
free on
cover
Tuesday?
all of this
Are you free on
when's the next
Tuesdays?
one, Ali?
It should be the first Tuesday of November, which is
First Tuesday of
November.
November.
The 5th.
I think
The
November
5th.
November
The
5th.
5th, yeah.
So
So we
Chris,
do
and
do
as a
it
matter of
early,
fact, the
Chris.
next. Sorry, I was gonna say the next. Oddly enough, the next stream that we're gonna have about the Tanakh is on Genesis 3 and 4. So
Yeah.
it's ironic, actually.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
try to watch that one. But
And
I got a
we'll try
roll.
to cover
I
it
just
holistically. Sorry, Chris, I just want to sell it out to you completely and make sure
sure.
you don't miss it.
All
So we're
right.
going to try and cover it holistically, right? We're going to look at the textual evidence that is there, the source evidence that is there, right? We're also going to look at what the contents speak of, how it's interpreted by both the Jews and the Christians, and at the same time, we're going to do a comparison externally, not just with the Quran, but also with other historical accounts that were around in the time and in the place where the Jews were and are relevant to or may have impacted those stories. So do join
fair.
us. The whole thing, I mean, if you get the opportunity, do listen to the whole thing because there would be a lot that we would be covering. And I
Okay.
do want to give you the opportunity to come up, challenge us because we feel that it would be very useful for us as well. It would
Okay.
be useful for those people who are hearing, and you can add quite a few matters. I mean, I get it. You do come with a Christian lens, which is exactly what we want.
Sure.
All right.
So I guess my concluding thoughts on it is that as a Christian, and I guess I can even say for a Jew as well, the text of Genesis or any promise that God makes, period, is important. And I think you all will agree that when God makes a promise, we expect him to keep his promise. So God makes a promise about the Messiah, makes a promise about this he that's in Genesis 3:15. And yes, DeAndre, I heard that, and Ali, I guess, agreed as well, that what I said can be true and what the Jews said can be true, or just what I said can be true and just what the Jews said can be true. I hear y'all saying that. But the difference is this: what is the narrative? And this is what I was bringing out in my interpretation. What does the narrative of the Old Testament say? Because just like you all have a presupposition to hold to the Quran and everything that it says, and that is your chief and highest authority, as a Christian, the Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, 66 books, is my chief and highest authority. And so when God makes a promise in the Old Testament, I'm looking for that promise to be fulfilled because God always does what he says because he cannot lie and he does not lie. And so as a result, the reason I was bringing it up when I talked about the emphasis you all put or don't put on the Messiah is that because the Messiah, the messianic figure in the Bible, is central to the message, and it's not about taking out all these snakes, which I struggle with that not being, absurd, but it's not about him taking out all these snakes. It's about him taking out all of the wicked people who go against him and against God's kingdom. And so the reality is that if you don't put an emphasis where the Bible puts an emphasis, your religion, and I'm saying Islam, would be totally other and totally different and not in line with the previous prophets, because this is what we know the previous prophets were saying, because this is the scriptural evidence that we have. And I know that kind of opens a can of worms, but that's one of the reasons why I thought it would be important to essentially go to the first promise related to the Messiah to see how you all treat it. And I
Yeah.
got a little taste of it.
Yeah. So
But like
So
I
if let
said,
me
I do got a
with
before
roll.
you.
with one, with one. Okay. If you don't mind,
I get like
can we
3 minutes just so I can try to be
so
fair.
can we let DeAndre give his closing, and then the rest of us can chime in. So DeAndre, Chris gave his closing. DeAndre, your closing.
Yeah.
Brothers, one second. I just want to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa
Wa
alaikum
alaikum salam wa
assalam
rahmatullahi
wa
wa barakatuh.
rahmatullahi wa
وعليكم السلام
barakatuh.
ورحمة الله وبركاته.
So
Yes,
Please go
sir.
ahead, DeAndre.
I got you. So all in all, very interesting conversation. We had some jokes, we had some jabs at Ali, who was falling asleep and then wanted us to catch him up. So I think I think that my overarching point kind of stands, and I guess I'm going to use this time to kind of articulate it so that people in the chat who maybe are lost on what my point is can kind of follow. And then obviously, Chris, I understand you got to roll, and these guys want to say whatever they want to say. So my overarching point is that there's two interpretations of Genesis 3:15. There's one of the Christian interpretation, and there's another of the Jewish interpretation. Now, it's upon the person who is interpreting the text to fulfill the burden of proof, meaning that they need to provide they need to provide proof that their belief or their interpretation is more hermeneutically sound than the other person's. If they cannot fulfill that burden of proof, then they would have to concede that there's two interpretations. Both are equally possible, both are equally valid, and the prophecy doesn't definitively point to one specific person. No, like if in the Daniel 2 thing, and Chris, I encourage you to watch this on Daniel 2 if you want to come back on a conversation on Daniel 2.
7?
Yeah, I mentioned Daniel 2 and Daniel 7. So just go
Okay.
watch that from my whole perspective on that. And if you were to come to me and say, I want to have a conversation, it would be upon me to show you that my interpretation makes the most sense, and I would be glad to do that. But I can't, unless I can do that. There's two interpretations, both can be valid, and the prophecy doesn't specifically apply to anyone. So I hope you guys understand. Chris, it was a pleasure having a conversation. I don't think we've ever had a one-on-one that hasn't lasted like 10 seconds. But
Agreed.
But very, very interesting. That sounded really bad. Yeah, so very good conversation. Pretty cool. Come back to our Tanakh stream where we actually will be discussing Genesis 3:15. I'll be quoting Christian and Jewish commentaries, etc. So, I mean, if you want to challenge any of the points I'll also be raising, no problem at all. We missed you on Genesis 1 and 2. So, yeah, I understand you got to roll, and these guys want to hop in, so they can hop in. Very interesting conversation, and that's it. That's it for me, folks. That's all, folks.
I appreciate your hospitality.
Hey, man,
and
hey, DeAndre,
the
DeAndre,
conversation.
be careful with that, man. We don't want any copyright issues, bro. Be careful. Go ahead, Chris.
All
I'll
right,
talk to
take
y'all
care,
later,
Chris.
Lord willing.
Welcome.
Thanks.
You're welcome back.
Copyright
anytime,
issues.
right?
Appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it.
Later.
Man,
Who copyrighted that?
no, don't you know you can get sued, man?
No, you can't.
Yeah.
No, you can't. You can't get sued for that.
Hey, man, look, all I know is with Warner Brother, with Warner Brother.
Technically, you can
Listen,
without because it's a trademarked. It's a trademarked phrase. So Warner Brothers can technically take it to court.
Fuad started this channel, and he's in Brazil, so American companies won't be able to sue us in America.
Oh, no. Warner Brothers is global, bro. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Warner Brothers is global. Yeah, because Looney Tunes is owned by Warner Brothers. So.
But they can't sue you in America. They can't sue you in U.S. court, though.
Says who?
Why can they sue you in U.S. court? You're not even in the U.S.
Bro, they can. Nah, what I'm saying
Ali,
is
we have somebody in the back chat.
Oh, this brother.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I know him. Alhamdulillah, he's a Muslim.
Okay.
Alhamdulillah. I thought you were gonna be like, no, I don't know that, man. No, I don't know.
Let's bring him on. If the brother, I don't know if the brother can turn on his camera for about 2 seconds or so. There you go, Akhi. You can go turn it off.
Okay.
All right, let's have him on.
You want me to bring him on? Or you're doing it?
Oh, yeah. I got it.
Okay, you're doing it.
Assalamu alaikum, Akhi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How you doing?
I just want to make one comment and then ask a question. I watched the interaction with a Christian. Chris was his name, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. He, as a Christian, he is offering an interpretation that this was a Christian Messiah in the Genesis. Was it 3:16 or 3:17?
3:15.
3:15.
Okay, so I have to ask a principal question. How can he, as a Christian, interpret Old Testament books such as Genesis, which is clearly Jewish work? What would give him the principles of exegesis to get the correct interpretation for something that the Jews inherited themselves and that they're the only ones authorized to interpret. Thank you very much.
You see, and that's actually the point of our me and Chris's conversation the last time, because the one thing that he's doing, he already has this presupposition that the way how Christians interpret the Old Testament is how it's supposed to be interpreted, and that was where the conversation between he and I went. And all I can say with Christians, part of their faith is, well, a huge part of their faith is that they believe that in the New Testament, there are prophecies that concerning the Messiah, Jesus, bringing forth from the Old Testament. So they conclude that it must everywhere in the Old Testament, everything about the Old Testament is about the Messiah. It's about the coming of the Messiah. It's literally foreshadowing that. So that's why they hold to that understanding that in order to solidify and give credibility to the New Testament, it had to be something that came from the Old Testament, something that was always meant to be, even with the whole, because they're taking Jewish terms like Mashiach, they're taking Jewish the books of the Jews, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, since Jesus is God, then it must have always been foreshadowed. So that's the presupposition that they're making. So they're going back to the Old Testament or the Tanakh, and they're seeing these verses with a Christian lens that tell themselves, oh, this is about the Messiah. And that's where they're getting that conclusion from. Meanwhile, they don't really take into account that what you just said, actually, they don't take into account that the Jews have not only do the Jews have a completely different understanding about what those verses are talking about, but actually they have a whole different understanding about not only who the Messiah is, but what the Messiah is. And this is the conversation that I really wanted to have with Chris, but inshallah, we'll have that next time, because Jews have a completely different understanding about what is the Messiah or who is the Messiah, what he will do.
I took your job for today, Ali. So thank you.
No, go ahead, okay.
In
Go ahead,
addition to
Badruddin.
that, yeah, what you guys are missing, the Christians have the Holy Spirit, the Jews don't have the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit, what's it called? Interpretation of tafsir will be a little bit more accurate. So you got to get that point too, Ali.
Amen. So yeah, that's why, and because what they need to realize is that you cannot just assume that, because you have two different faiths who view the same scripture as scripture, but they come with two completely different understandings. So one side think their interpretation is the true interpretation. The other side thinks their interpretation is the true interpretation. The problem is, well, they now have to go at it, literally. So somebody has to be wrong. And unfortunately, both sides think they're the right ones, but they don't have the proper criteria to show which side is truly right or which side is
you
truly wrong.
you know the funniest part, Ali?
What's up?
Before DeAndre came in the other time, what I was gonna raise up to Chris was, have you had this conversation with a Jew before? Perhaps you can go have a debate with a Jew, then come back and meet us. Then whoever is victorious in that debate, then you can come back and tell us, okay, yes, we've both agreed that our interpretation is right and their interpretation is wrong. So I think that would be more appropriate because he's picking up a fight with us. I mean, because we have no what's it called? It could be anything to us. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really have any bearing on our faith. To be sincere with you.
Exactly.
So
And on top of that, actually, when what Chris said about how the whole Old Testament foreshadows the coming of the Messiah, this is different, because this is different to the Jews, because to the Jews, it actually, if you remove your Christian lens, I would say, if you look at the Tanakh or the Old Testament, it doesn't even talk about the Messiah. As a matter of fact, it never uses Messiah in the definitive. It never says the Messiah. It's talking it 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 barely even focuses on the person of the Messiah. All it For the most part, it focuses on what the world would be like when the Messiah during the age of the Messiah. As a matter of fact, even as far as what the job of the Messiah is to do. That's why, because there's no definitive the Messiah, okay, the Jews have many messiahs. They believe that Cyrus the Great the Persian emperor in Isaiah 45 calls him God's anointed. King Saul calls him God's anointed. So the Jews have a concept of many messiahs. As a matter of fact, the Messiah to come, he's called a Messiah, not the Messiah. So even the whole understanding that everywhere in the Old Testament foreshadows the Messiah coming, but the Jews have a completely different concept. It's not about the Messiah coming or the personhood of the Messiah. It's about the Messianic age. When they say a verse is Messianic, they're mostly talking about the age of which the Messiah will show up. That's what the Jewish understanding is. So even that alone, they have a completely different concept of what it means to even talk about the coming of the Messiah. Somebody has to be wrong. Does that
I
answer
do
your question,
understand
Aki?
what I do understand what you're saying, sir. But my idea, which I don't think it's an original idea, but my idea would be, why are we granting to the Christian any starting point? Like I would cut them off immediately to say to them that their position is even a non-starter, because they have no inheritance of the principles of interpretation. They have no way to gauge what would even the first step be to determine the truth. They have no criterion of any kind. It's like an atheist trying to tell you what's moral and what's immoral.
Well, I'll say
This,
this.
There's a problem there. There's a problem there, brother. Because here's the thing: if you're talking about inheriting it from that standpoint, then even, and I'm just saying this from a linguistics point of view, all right? Even the Jews don't inherit it because it's not even in its original language. When you have a scripture that's not even in its original language, then it's not up for inheritance from to anyone, right? But we're not looking at that paradigm. We're looking at it from a theological paradigm. From a theological paradigm, they do have that right, whether we like it or not.
All right. Mike's in the back chat, Ali.
Oh,
Mike, can you just
could
confirm with
I
a thumbs
comment
up
on
or a
that?
thumbs down if you're sober?
Wait,
Okay, good.
yeah. So wait, brother Faisal, I think somebody wanted to say something before then.
That's
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead,
go
go ahead.
ahead.
That's fine.
There's no way
No,
Brother
I'll bring him
Faisal
up,
just said
but
that. That's
finish
crazy.
your conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
Faisal 2.0. Faisal
Bro-
2.0.
Brother
You
Faisal,
don't need
that's
a way,
insane.
or what?
That's crazy.
Go ahead, Aki.
oh no,
Oh,
not this guy. No.
no, I was
Ali,
gonna say,
just
Be nice.
be nice. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mike, how
Oh,
you doing,
Faisal.
man?
I'm
No,
doing
one
great.
second,
How are
Aki.
y'all?
1 second, Aki.
Alhamdulillah.
Faisal wanted
Yeah.
to go.
no, I just wanted to say that Dear Alti Des Boot actually made a good point. There's no official handoff from the Apostolic Church to the Christians of today. There's a gap there. And that gap jumps from one culture and heritage to a completely different culture and heritage. So the Jewish community, even though they've lost their original documents, they actually would have the tradition and teachings that they would have been leveraging over a long period of time. But when we get to the Apostolic Church and then to the Roman Church, there's a gap there, and there's no legitimate handoff, and we have reason to believe that those documents have been destroyed. So I'm leaning more towards their alt's position here
Yeah.
on that.
So Faisal, here's the thing. How far does that Jewish succession go?
Well,
Right. It only goes back a certain number of years. After that, there's a broken chain, and it's pretty much been made up. Most of that chain has been made up. So even with that, the Jews definitely don't have any legitimacy. I mean, and we're talking about even a longer period of time than the Christians that we're talking about. The Christians we know for sure. The Jews we don't even know, and they don't even know, and nobody knows how much of it has been manufactured versus how much of it is actually true. So definitely, from the final results, we can tell as Muslims, because we have the truth with us, that it's there is some truth in there, but most of it has been corrupted.
No,
Right. So
I agree that there is a corruption there, but if you look at Acts 21:21, you'll find that with James, the church was actually reinvigorated by the law. So even though we would consider the Torah to be corrupted, What we could say is that because of the Messiah, because of the prophet, the law had been replenished sufficiently that the practices were continuing. So when Jesus came and replenished that teaching, they continued their traditional practices, even though their text is corrupt, even though there's issues here and there, they still had enough to continue going. And even in the Quran, we have a position where the Jews are told to uphold the law. As long as they uphold the law, they could basically continue with their covenant. So I'm not saying it's perfectly transmitted, but here's what I'm trying to say. If a Christian tries to justify the Trinity, what we would say is, if you don't show me how the apostles or Jesus discuss the Trinity clearly, then there's a disconnect between this idea and your root. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you can't show me Jesus discussing the crucifixion, then there's a disconnect between the idea and the root.
Yeah. So even with that, when you look at it, and I'm just arguing with myself here, guys, so you can
that's fine. Go
start
ahead.
with. But here's the thing: even the early apostles, how many of them are actually succeeding from the true? Sorry, not the apostle, early church fathers. How many of them are actually succeeding from the real apostles of Jesus? We're not talking about the 13th, right? Self-made apostle. We're talking about the true apostle. So even with that, you question how much of that is actually credible. So in both cases, I mean, there's no grounds to stand on, and the only reasons why we can actually look back and tell what's true and what's false is because of the Quran. If it was not there, and if it didn't reestablish monotheism as with strength, right, and with purpose, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. Right. We do have Mike. How are you doing, Mike? You're on mute.
Yeah. I'm doing good. How are you all?
We're doing okay.
Not bad.
First, I want to say, Ali, I was over on Yemeni front, and someone asked for you to come in and crush me or something. So I guess you're getting famous. So what are we all talking about here? Do I need to be restrained, or can we go up?
Mike, that was a different type of crush, because Ali is
honesty,
like
bro.
7'8". He's 7'8". His shoe size is 16.
What? Wait a minute. What?
When he wants to crush people, it's a totally different type of crush.
I believe it. Those are huge hands he's got. I can see it.
I'm just happy Mike is sober. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. What?
I'm serious, because honestly, I have not even just a religious. I absolutely despise alcohol personally. So that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
And
so,
I sort of know why as well.
Yeah, I have a passionate dislike, hatred for alcohol. So, but anyways, go ahead.
Well, that can happen.
So, yeah. So, Mike, here's the question. Where are you right now? Because we've definitely had a number of conversations so far, and I think the question of whether God exists or not, that keeps coming up. We sort of that's the core of where we are. Where are you, and why are you still resisting the idea of there being a one God? And do you have any credible explanation of our reality outside of that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a circular conversation that will go on forever. No, I don't have a credible evidence that God does not exist. I would say I have credible evidence that your God does not exist. Or
what God is that?
The God of the Quran.
Yeah.
And okay, so tell us about tell us about who the God of the Quran has to be.
No. He has evidence, Ali. He actually
he has evidence.
I would love to hear about that.
No,
sure.
So okay, before we get to the evidence,
Mike,
I actually want to know I actually want to get to the understanding of who God is before we get to the God of the Quran, because it makes no sense in talking about the God of the Quran if he does not understand the concept of God
exactly
in general.
So essentially, the two things that you would, from your statement, you're going to be establishing is who's the God of the Quran, that we're talking about, how do Muslims perceive it? So you basically streamline our position on who God is. And then second is what the evidence that you can provide that he does not exist.
Sure. The God of the Quran would be the God who revealed the Quran. Obviously, it would be the creator of the universe. But more importantly, the God who reveals the Quran. So let's look at the Quran in all its majesty and glory and what it has revealed and what it has failed to reveal. So,
Mike, before you go, I do want to correct something. So the Quran itself explains who God is, right?
okay.
And it's very clear. It's not something that is unclear. It's very clear who God is. So when Muslims talk about who God is, we know who we're talking about. So do you want to make sure that you're very clear on explaining to us who God is that we can agree with, not just basically make a statement without proving to us that, or without actually getting us to agree with you that you're talking about the same God?
Okay, why don't you just tell me who your God is? I mean, I would think your God is the one true creator.
Okay, let's take that as a definition and we can start with that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna agree with that definition that he's the one true creator.
Okay.
Okay, let's move ahead with this.
Okay. And then he revealed himself through his prophets, obviously going back to Adam, through Abraham, Moses, Solomon, blah, blah, blah. Jesus is to Muhammad, who's the seal of the prophets. There were, 124,000 prophets sent to people throughout the world to speak to them in their own language.
The only thing I would correct there is you've sort of used a very Christian terminology for explaining how we understand that. We don't use the term he revealed himself because we don't believe that God revealed himself. We believe that God revealed our purpose, and he basically gave us the revelation that explained who he is, right, and what our purpose is.
Okay. That was interesting because when you said didn't reveal himself, I kind of concentrated on the word reveal, but you're saying it's on not revealing himself, but telling us our purpose, revealing our purpose, as opposed to his existence.
So the way, it's just the way that terminology is being used, because when you use the terminology the way you put it, that he revealed himself, right? There's a very Christian connotation to it. I don't want us to I don't want to be bogged down by that. That I don't want to be forced into a position where I have to accept something which I don't necessarily agree with.
Okay. So rather than he revealed himself, he revealed his divine guidance.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay. So I think his divine guidance has fallen short and should be evident through the behavior of Muslims throughout time.
Okay.
Mike, you're kind of jumping the gun, Mike. We're still trying to establish who this God has to be.
I basically accepted that, Ali, that he's the one true creator of this universe, right?
Yeah.
I basically accepted that as a definition because we can work with that, right? I don't say that it's exhaustive, because there's like the way we understand it, we look at the 99 names of Allah, we interpret who he is in light of those names and what they mean, right? So, but for our purpose, for this discussion, I think we can start with that.
Fair enough.
Okay. So I find his divine revelation through the Quran and even the Sunnah to be lacking, to be inconclusive, to be ambiguous, nebulous, if you will.
Despite the fact
Okay.
it's more comprehensive than any
Now-
other religious tradition.
That may be true.
What I want to know, Mike, 1 second. What I want to know is this, and because for me, I don't want to go down another rabbit hole at all. So what I want to know is this an objective claim you're making, or is this a subjective claim that you're making?
Subjective.
Okay.
Well,
So
wait. So why? Okay, my question is, why should an objective being like the one true God adhere to your subjective claims?
Well, I don't believe in the objective one true God. So why should
I
I?
didn't I didn't say if you believe them or not. You could
Okay.
believe in some you could believe
Well,
in something that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So I'm not talking
right.
about belief here because beliefs itself are subjective. I'm talking
no, so
about an objective reality.
Right.
Let's
I'm
take it
Your
one step
belief
back.
is subjective.
Ali,
so
let's take it one step back, Afi, because I think the fact that Mike is making a judgment, right? He's basically using a criteria, right? Let's ask him for that criteria first, and let's make sure that's a criteria that can be agreed upon. If it's a criteria that only one person holds, essentially that's just as meaningless as uh, a person going around running naked on the street and saying this is the right way of living, right?
I mean
Because they can agree with
the
that.
the moment you say it's a subjective, there is the criteria is based solely on his on subjective criteria, meaning his emotions, his understanding.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
even if we do present him with an objective standard, he's still going to choose to go with his emotions and opinions. So if
yeah.
we're going to
No,
establish a
I
criteria,
agree.
there's no
Let's give
point
him
in
the
going
opportunity.
subjective with it.
Let's give him the opportunity, and let's see if he can actually present to us a criteria that we can agree that can be agreed upon by more people, right? So
I
let's hear him out.
I'll
Okay.
buy.
So Ali, your objective morality is based on just what, the Quran and the Hadiths?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
My objective morality is based upon God, and and I believe, and I objectively believe that God is the author of the Quran. So my objective morality is coming from the one true God, the one who made me. So yes.
Okay. Is it possible you're wrong?
Is it possible
Excuse
that
me.
we're wrong?
Excuse
That
me. One second.
our
Well, anything is possible. But if you're trying to say that I'm wrong, then you have to provide me objective evidence for me being wrong. Do you have any
No,
objective evidence for me being wrong?
I was just asking if it's possible you're wrong, and you said
Oh yeah,
yes.
no.
I
No,
appreciate
yeah.
that.
I mean,
Thank you.
if I'm humble, I mean, that's why personally for me, that's why I'm someone who likes having interfaith discussions because if I like to try my best to try to be humble. So if someone has an objective criteria for me, then I have to humble myself. So is there a possibility? Sure. However, you'd have to bring that objective criteria coming.
Yeah,
So,
but
but
Ali, that's a very broad statement that he made. Like, what does it mean to be wrong? Is he
that's exact,
basically saying
that's
that our
that's
criteria is
exactly what I'm
wrong,
saying.
our interpretation is wrong, right? Or
Mhm.
is it the standards that we're looking at, they're wrong? At what level are you talking about this?
Yeah.
I appreciate your honesty and your answer. Most Muslims wouldn't say it's possible I'm wrong. Uh, it's obviously possible I'm wrong, but yeah, when you guys create this objective standard, right? And I get where you're going. It's like if you don't believe in God, you can't have an objective standard, so your morality must be wrong. It is only subjective. It is the whims of your desires, blah blah blah, right? I have
So,
no answer for that other than to say, sure, my
mhm.
morality is subjective. It's subjective to my reasoning. It's subjective to my belief that you shouldn't kill someone because they leave a religion. Now, where do I get that
Well,
from? I get it from reason. I get it from history. I get it from
what?
social
Wait.
norms. Blah
Okay.
blah blah.
Okay.
One second. Are you?
Well, Ekwan, please. Sorry, T. I really want to take this. You say you get it from reason. What does reason say about that?
Reason says I wouldn't want to be killed for leaving a religion. Therefore, I shouldn't kill someone for leaving a
So
religion.
basically, your subjective reason says you would want to get killed. That means it must be the wrong thing to do in general.
Correct.
So in a sense, you're imposing your wants and desires over what as the standard for everything. So basically,
Correct.
everything should fit your standard.
Sure.
And see, do you know what you've just done?
Well, if I was a masochist,
No,
I may have just made us all
Mike.
want to beat each other.
No, Mike, you just made yourself God.
Okay.
Literally, so you're basically saying you're God.
Well, sure. Why not? I'm as smart as God because I've read God's decrees and they're bad.
Mike,
Okay.
you know,
Okay. Wait.
brothers,
Wait, Afan.
certain
Afan,
statements.
please. I really want to take this. I do
Calm
apologize
down.
to you
Calm
guys.
down. Yeah.
No,
You
I'm
guys,
calm. I'm calm. It's just
you guys, you guys can
I
find me
mean,
later, but
so
I
much of the
really want to take
Quran
this.
is so much of the Quran is so relevant right now to me because of the statement Mike made,
Yeah.
and I know why Ali's excited.
So,
I know
you can
exactly what
you
you're
can
talking
tell.
about.
You can tell. So, Mike,
I was just gonna ask him a
Ali,
quick question, but
yeah,
brothers, please, come on, guys.
let Ali deal with this. Put your points in the back chat so that we can cover it later, right? And we don't forget it. But let Ali lead the discussion for now, because Mike
All right.
did come in to have that discussion with Ali.
So, Mike, here's the problem that you're doing, and this is the reason why. I mean, earlier I did see you for a bit on Al Yemeni's channel, and we've had a conversations in the past. And the last time you are upfront, you do say it's your subjective reasoning, it's your subjective reality. But the problem is you're talking about a subjective standard to talk about a being that has to be objective. That's a problem. Meaning, for one, who died and made you God? That's one. And two, you can't come to any conclusion based upon your subjective morality. And quite frankly, that's blatant narcissism. If you're saying, "Oh, I am the standard. I am the standard. Everyone should be following because I have the perfect standard." So, Mike, what I want to know is right now is put the Quran aside. Literally, for right now, let's put the Quran aside. I want to talk about where your standards come from. Where do you, where do you conclude that your standard, your criteria that you've made for yourself, where do you conclude that should be the standard everyone should go by? When and where did you conclude that? What happened? Because I want to know.
Well, I mean, obviously, it comes from my upbringing. I was raised as a Catholic, so I'm indoctrinated with
Oh,
some. So
okay. So Catholic standard. Go ahead.
okay,
Got it.
so I'm also born in America. So we have a Constitution. We're raised on that. Some of that is ingrained to you to some degree. I believe in freedom of speech. I'm all for an armed populace, despite school shootings and all that. But yeah, all those things come into play as to how a human comes to what their understanding of morality is.
So okay. So what I got so far is you're an American. You're an American that was raised Catholic. That's all I got. Am I good so far?
Sure, that's good so far. I think
So
I believe in
so
freedom
you,
of speech. I believe in freedom
so
of
your
religion.
morality,
I believe. Can I speak?
your morality. No, one second. Your morality comes from the laws and the teachings of this country. So, is this country has this country ever done anything that's immoral
Of
based on
course.
the teachings? So, if this country has done something that's immoral, a lot of things that's immoral, I would say, why would you say that's the standard you should go by?
I'm not saying I'm going by the country standard. I'm saying some of their standards are ingrained in me because I was raised under them.
Do you think some of those standards could be?
Can I
Do
speak?
you think some of those standards can be immoral?
Not the ones that I accept to be moral. No.
Why not?
Because that's the definition of me accepting them to be moral.
No, I'm saying why can't they be immoral? I mean, you could accept the moral standards. I can too.
Right, but you asked if some of them could be immoral.
Yeah.
And I said I wouldn't accept the immoral parts of them.
How would you know which is which?
I just make it up in my own head.
You make it up in your head.
This is circular reasoning. It's
Thank
not.
you.
There's
It's not.
nothing circular about it.
No,
That's absolutely false.
no, it's
You're saying
immoral.
I'm fed
So,
something,
It's
and
immoral
therefore I believe
because
it's
you
moral.
don't believe that it's
all right.
moral. That's your reasoning.
So, you know what?
Ikhwan,
Ikhwan, no, 1 second. Based
All
up
right.
because
hold
One thing I
I,
want to
rem-
do, Ali,
I
Ali,
remember the last time. Well, just let me finish
Ali.
this, okay? I
Yeah.
remember the last time my sadistic side, I was very selfish and I didn't give Brother Hassan or Brother Samir a slice of this pie. So this time I'm gonna do that. So I have one last question and then I'm gonna stop talking because this is frankly just ridiculous at this point. So Mike,
Oh, you read
my
my
last
mind,
question.
Ali.
My last question to you is this: you're talking about you're talking about the being of God, right? So God, you have this image of God in your head. You have this idea of God in your head, who God has to be, who God is, right? My last question to you right now is this: is the being of God in your head greater than you, or the being of God that you have yourself in your subjective reasoning, in your subjective understanding, the person who you said that God has to be, this understanding of whatever God is, this is who he has to be. Is this understanding greater than you, or are you greater than it?
There is no God, so your question is
What
pointless.
what what did I just ask?
You asked me if God would be greater than me.
Yeah.
If
That's
there
not what
were
I
a
asked.
God, yes,
No,
obviously he'd be
no,
greater than me.
that's not what I asked. I said
That's
your
not.
understanding, because you said I'm going to clarify again. You said you have a subjective criteria of who God has to be. You have came up with your own subjective criteria about who this whatever God, this God himself has to be. My question to you is this understanding, this criteria that you have made up subjectively based on your opinion about who this God has to be, is this understanding greater than you, or are you greater than it?
Of course, a God would be greater than me.
So why are you limiting this understanding based upon your own opinion if you just agree that whoever God is has to be greater than you anyway? Why why are you why are you saying he has to succumb to my criteria even though he's greater than me? Do you see what the problem is?
I see what I think you think the problem is, but no,
You
I'm
know
not
what,
saying, I'm not
F1,
saying that.
at this point, I'm done. I got my answer. You guys can go ahead and
Nope.
take some of the slice. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just quick question for you, Mike. Do you think we evolved from monkey?
Yeah, I think we evolved. Well, we're a great ape, so yeah, we're in the family of apes, I believe.
Okay.
I'm not sure monkeys fall into it. Chimpanzees do. We share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees. Monkeys
Okay.
have tails. That's a little different.
So
And monkeys are
essentially,
only in the new world,
Uh,
not in the old world.
guys,
one
would it be
second.
okay that I interact with Mike for 1 minute?
One
Wait,
second. I'm gonna leave you. I'm gonna leave
Darboot,
you. 1 second.
just a few moments. We'll give you a turn. Just wait for the brothers as well. There's quite a big line here.
Yeah, Mike. So do you trust the intellect of a chimpanzee?
No,
So why should I trust the intellect of someone who evolved from a chimpanzee then?
because we've evolved past the chimpanzee.
Why don't you talk about yourself, Mike? Maybe you're talking about yourself.
Okay,
No,
I
no,
am
no
talking about
disrespect.
myself.
Okay, so if I
I didn't
can
find that
trust,
disrespectful.
no, think about it from this standpoint. If I can't trust a chimpanzee, why should I trust the intellect of someone that actually evolved from a chimpanzee? So just let that sink in, please.
Okay.
Okay, so the boss, maybe you can come in. Go ahead.
I
Okay.
think he's
You
letting
know
you
what?
in.
Actually, you know what? Actually, Mike, I would like to ask you one question. It's a very simple one. Uh, in the last 6 hours, would you say you've interacted with more Muslims or non-Muslims? In the
Muslim.
last 6 hours, Muslims. Mike, 6 hours is 6 hours is technically 1/4 of a day, 24-hour day.
Correct.
Yeah, this is a very serious question. I'm not trying to joke around. I'm not trying to berate you or undermine you in any way. But why are you so hung up on attention from us?
I don't know. I guess I should seek out a psychiatrist at this point to find it out. But I find this entertaining.
No, you find this entertaining, Mike. People get bored in a month, 2 tops. I've been observing you for over a year, and I've seen videos of you going back 2 years. So
I doubt that. I joined YouTube March of 2023. I would think the first video you would have seen of me was Hamza's Den, episode 60, which should be.
I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about Hamza's Den.
Okay,
but
well,
that's
what
another.
video did you see
But
of me before
that's
Hamza?
another discussion. That's another discussion, Mike. You don't. The fact of the matter is, at this point, it's not about a psychiatrist. It's about you actually taking a good hard look in the mirror.
Right.
That's honestly what I've. That's honestly all I've got to say, because for a man who has, and pardon me if you think this is a misrepresentation, but for a man who is obsessed with Islam and who says that he hates it, you sure as hell spend a lot of time interacting with Muslims. Just saying.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. I don't deny that in any way, shape, or form. So can we get back to the Quran and its supposed divine revelation, or should we move on?
I do want to give the other brothers. Let's just finish that discussion up. Brother Dar, are you here? You're on mute, Akhi. If you want to ask the question, you can ask now.
You know what? Let me be funny. Das Boot.
Can I please help Mr. Mike out for 1 minute, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi, Mike. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm gonna try to run one argument by you and see how you feel about it. Maybe to help you out to see that God does actually exist. And I'm going to. It's a very simple argument, and it's a fact that everybody knows. I'll try to run it by you, and let's see how you feel about it, if that's okay.
Sure.
I will start with a question, and I'll be very direct. How many neurons do you think there are in the brain? In your brain or any brain? How many neurons?
I'm going to go with 1 trillion.
So, okay, the current figure is about 1.3 billion neurons in a single human brain. Okay. The number that you're referring to, this is the connections between the neurons. The synapse does run into trillions. Okay. So this is one brain that we are talking about, and it took about 9 months to develop in the womb, and then another 2 to 3 years to fully develop into a functional brain with additional connections over the few more years period of time. So each cell is like a factory, each neuron is like a factory. And we are talking about over a billion neurons getting connected to each other without any mistakes in most of the cases. And if you look at the human example, how long it takes to build a single factory, and it has a lot of errors after a team of human beings builds a single factory with a team of engineers and planners, and all of the guys working to a single factory. Here we're talking about millions of brains a year. Let me finish, guys. Let me finish.
You broke up. Okay, you broke up. Okay, repeat what you just said. You broke up.
I said, I don't know what was the last part that Mike heard me.
Right. Can I kind of cut them off and say I understand the argument of complexity, and actually to me
no, it's not the argument of complexity. I'm talking about billions of connections and trillions of connections being made without any errors in the most of the cases, where it takes for the team of builders and engineers and planners to build a single factory, it takes them months to do so with many errors. I'm talking about every single cell is a factory, and it takes such a quick amount of time to build them without any errors, and then we have millions of brains. This is happening simultaneously. It's happening simultaneously without errors in the most of the cases. So we are talking over 90% success here. And the other, few percent that have so-called faulty designs, well, this can be explained in other ways. So how would you account for an argument like this?
Well, I'm not really sure what your argument is, other than I think that God does very complex things on large scales, whereas humans can't. But
I'm saying that this points directly to the Almighty Creator, at least to one of His attributes of being Almighty, because there is no. If you take the randomness and you bring it to the quantum level, even beyond of the neuron, okay, you bring it to the quantum level, you say it's random. You cannot explain the success of the functionality using randomness, even if you bring it down to the most basic level. So it cannot be randomness at the bottom of the chain. It has to be something that is already there and something that is playing ahead of time, because you cannot explain the building of all of these factories simultaneously unless it's pre-planned and controlled at the same time. You cannot attribute it to randomness. It doesn't compute. So go ahead and answer and respond to me.
Sure. Well, I think the randomness has been worked out billions of years ago. Nowadays
there's nothing to work out. There is nothing to work out there. It's all the word randomness itself. The word randomness itself is telling you that there's nothing to work out. Its very nature is to be random. There's no working out here. You are projecting from your own mind onto the concept of randomness that it has a directionality. It doesn't. Randomness is randomness at all times, and there's nothing to work out there. Go ahead.
Oh, can I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you want to speak? You said you refused to answer, right?
No, I did not say I refused to answer. I was trying to answer, and he cut me off, as you guys are prone to do.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Give me a direct and give me structured response. Don't give me wishy-washy answer. I want evidence, I want steps, and I want logical connections, the same way that I did it. Go ahead.
Okay. So evolution started billions of years ago.
No. Wrong. Start from the basic principle. Explain to me how randomness can direct what I just explained. Don't give me the labels of anything. Explain to me direct concepts, how they work, why they work. Go ahead.
Well, every word I'm going to say, you're going to tell me I'm wrong, even though
because they're all wrong. They're all wrong. You are putting. You know why they're wrong.
Look.
You know why they're wrong. Go ahead.
Let me explain it to him. Let me explain to Mike in very simple words, right? Mike, when you throw something out saying, "Oh, it's because of randomness," you're basically telling me in very clear terms that you don't know.
Randomness. Can we rewind the tape? I never even said
that's
randomness.
Fine. When you claim something is random, right? Essentially, what you're telling me, you don't know why it happened the way it happened. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. Now, here's the point. That is basically you claiming to be ignorant. And when you're ignorant, it's better to be quiet and not speak than to start claiming things like worldviews. I adhere to this worldview because of this reason. And when we start probing into it, like the brother is just doing with you, your claim is, I am ignorant of this. That's why I believe in this. That to me is a very irrational claim to make.
Okay.
And that's why we're asking you, because that's exactly why we're asking you. Are you understanding what you're saying? Because it is clear to us you're not.
You all need to tell me when I'm allowed to speak.
Yeah, no, go ahead now. Sorry.
Okay. So apparently Mark Twain is a Muslim. Socrates said, "I'm a wise man, for I know nothing." So yes, I don't claim to know the truth. I'm trying to give you a theory of evolution. That evolution started billions of years ago. Yes, you can call it randomness. Things went this way or that way, and we evolved out of simian, ape-like creatures to the humans we are now. Look
Mike,
at like
this is not logic. This is not rational. You're just talking. Everything is unprovable in what you're saying. I cannot grant you even one supposition. I'm sorry. There is not even a starting point for you, because
okay,
you cannot have a rational argument without rational suppositions and axioms. You cannot even start. That was my whole point of this exposition. You have no starting point. You have nothing to say.
Okay. Can I ask you this? Who were the Neanderthals?
It doesn't matter, Mike. This has nothing to do.
Awesome.
This has nothing to do with
Awesome.
anything
This is a complete red
that we're
herring.
discussing. It's a complete red herring here.
Awesome.
What we're asking
So-
you, the way you're positioning your position here is evolution started, right? Something happened randomly.
Right.
Everything came into being. Okay.
Right.
You don't have any evidence to back that up.
That's correct.
It's a theory. It's a hypothesis.
Absolutely.
It's a
That's why it's called the theory of
abstract position.
evolution.
It's a complete abstract position. Right?
Okay, then,
So,
Mike. Then QED, quod erat demonstratum. Game over. The game over. You gotta go home. You gotta go home.
Okay.
Okay, calm down. So Mike, here's the thing.
So
this
can
is
anyone
exactly
tell
what
me
we're saying.
who the Neanderthals were?
Mike, it doesn't matter.
Why?
That's what we're trying to say.
I have a question. Can you not answer it, or do you not know all the truth?
It's a different species, different human species than us. Okay? There you go.
One of the four hominids.
Were they children of Adam?
We don't know.
Okay.
And we don't
Brother Faisal, I would assume yes, because some of us have Neanderthal DNA, so we would be considered.
Right.
Yeah, it would be considered bestiality almost.
But here's the thing, Afi. I don't care.
Yeah, it has no theological implication.
Yeah, it has no theological.
Just so sorry. May I just interject here, Mike? You're talking about Neanderthals as if they're scientific fact.
They are.
There is evident. Not everything about Neanderthals is scientific fact, Mike. Most of what has been put forward are theories. Is there certain evidence to back up part of that theory? Yes, but only part of that theory, that a subspecies of human beings that we have classified as Neanderthals existed. However, their characteristics have not been defined properly. Whatever has been defined has been theorized. Has not been backed up with evidence. Some of it, yes, their height, their weight has been theorized, and there is some evidence to back that up. But other than that, when we talk about evidence, hardcore evidence, there's very little to back that up with. Just so you know.
As someone said, humans have been found to have up to 6% of Neanderthal DNA in them. So,
and what does that prove?
It either proves they're children of Adam and Eve, if you guys believe, 49.
Why are you inserting this idea of children and Adam and Eve into this?
Because that's what Islam believes. Read 49:13. We made you of a single pair.
All humankind, all modern humankind, are children of Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Neanderthal. It doesn't matter to me if Neanderthal were actual. Were they able to interact with humans or not, right? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is whether or not you can understand your purpose or not. That's the key thing. If for you that is not an important matter, then you're in the wrong place to have a discussion with us.
I mean,
would that matter?
I'm still trying to figure out what he's even saying. I mean, based on his analogy, that means we come from bananas because we share DNA with bananas too. Bananas,
exactly.
Like I'm still trying to figure out what the hell he's coming.
But he would say yes, we do, and we did come from bananas, and he is
potassium. Nice,
right? But here's what I want to get back.
Mike, these brothers are too nice to you, man. They are too nice to you. You cannot even grasp basic facts. You cannot.
Mike, do you exist?
Let me have this conversation with him, because there's a few things that he said before.
Let brother Pastor handle this.
I've been waiting for a while. So Mike,
brother Pastor handle this.
You put this idea forward that you are the one who's supposed to judge, right? And your morality comes from your Christian background and your American background, right? Today, when you follow a law, or when you follow a moral standard, what is the reason why you're doing that? Why do you follow through on any laws that are enacted in your state?
Because I don't want to be arrested.
Exactly. It's authority and it's power.
Sure.
Right? If a weak, skimpy guy comes to you who cannot harm you, and he tells you, you cannot walk past this line. He draws a line on the ground, and he says, you cannot walk past this line. What are you going to do?
Well, it depends on if I'm trying to get past the line or not.
Yeah, he makes a circle around you. He makes a circle around you.
Yeah.
He tells you, you cannot pass this line for 5 days. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'd push him over and walk past the line.
Exactly. That's the point, right? Who's the lawgiver? The lawgiver is the most powerful entity in the universe, God. And you're telling us, oh, I'm going to push over God? No, you don't have any power. You don't have any say. I'm sorry, Mike. You're a pathetic excuse for a nothing in front of God.
Oh man.
Right?
Whoa. Oh, in
no
front
matter
of God.
how,
Okay, cool.
yeah, and no matter how much you want to argue that, oh, I judge God, I do this, you're nothing. What are you?
So
Yo.
All you are, let me tell you, let me give you what you are. You travel through 2 urinary tracts to get into this world.
Oh my
That's who you are.
God.
This is your reality. And you're being arrogant? What are you doing?
That is an interesting point. Why did Allah create the whole menstrual cycle? Why would you put the vagina that close to the anus?
Mike,
Through a urinary tract.
Okay, this is where we go somewhere
how
else.
he is. But Mike,
He just said I traveled through 2 urinary tracts, and you guys are now offended.
Mike, that's
Right.
that's to point out your reality. Like you're coming from that.
Yeah.
You're coming from that. All right.
That
And
goes more towards evolution than intelligent design.
No, Mike, you're trying to question the most honorable existence in this universe, the one with the most understanding, the most power, the most wisdom, right? All understanding, all power, all wisdom, right? The one who's giving you laws that are just. Just because you don't understand them, that doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Oh,
the fact that you're a man, if you start telling us that, oh, I'm a woman, right? Mike is a woman, that wouldn't make you a woman. You have male genes. You have an X and Y chromosome. That's the hard fact about you. That wouldn't change, regardless of what you say about yourself. And that's the same way. No matter what you say about God, He's the lawgiver. Right. And when He gives the law, it is objective for us.
So what is the law for intersex people? People with XXY chromosomes, or
what is the law? What do you expect them to do? They live at whatever the dominant gene is, right? Okay. If it's X, they'll act and stay that way. If they're able to reproduce, they're able to reproduce. If they're not, they're not. It's not supposed to be some sort of perverted fetish for a Mr. Mike sitting somewhere in his basement to think about why is God creating this? What can I do with this? Right? Everybody, like, what's the reason for a sociopath? Should a sociopath be allowed to just, like, I'm using sociopath very loosely here. I think the right person is probably someone who's a serial killer, let's say. They have this tendency to kill. They want to kill because that's what gets them off. Should they just follow through on that because that's their nature? They get off because of that. Is that okay?
Yeah, I think you're thinking of a psychopath as opposed to a sociopath.
Yes, psychopath.
Yeah, it has to do with their lack of, I think, the thalamus or something, but some gland.
Do you think that's okay for them to do?
No, absolutely not.
But why is that not okay for them, but somebody
Right.
who has, let's say, homosexual tendencies, it's okay for them to act on that.
Well, it depends on how they act on their homosexual tendencies. If they're consenting adults,
It
it's
doesn't
not an
matter if
issue.
they're consenting adults.
Well, it does to me.
It's harmful for the human race. I mean, if you're looking at it biologically, the
How
homosexuality
would it
is
be harmful
for
for the human race?
It prevents genes from going forward.
But
Right.
why would you want homosexual genes to move forward?
There are no homosexual genes.
Oh,
Right?
okay, you know what, Ekwan?
Just have those tendencies.
I
The
think
point
it's time we
is,
let Mike
at the
go.
end of the day, yeah. Let me just sum it up with you.
Go
And
ahead.
that's pretty much. This is pretty much it. I don't care what you think, Mike. You're a nothing. Okay.
Okay.
The only reason why you're relevant, or you become relevant, is because you're part of a society. Okay. And there's a collective thing that people have agreed to something. That's true. So just from that, the fact that there are 2 billion Muslims who believe in something that is true, that makes it more relevant than your American laws. And it also makes it more relevant than your Catholic laws. Catholics are probably a billion only. So from that idea, that if more people assign to it, it's probably more true. Islam is the truth. And maybe you should follow it.
Well, I would disagree with the concept that just because it's popular makes it right.
I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with that either. I'm just
we agree.
talking about it from your perspective. Just because you live in an area.
Not my perspective.
It is
you're putting words in my mouth.
Your reasoning was
I never
just
said
your rationality.
I never said might makes right or majority makes right. You're lying,
Mike,
sir.
No, I'm
You're
not.
a liar.
Mike, your statement was, I accept Catholicism and those
I did not say that.
And
I did
the
not say
U.S.
that.
Constitution and the U.S. Constitution, because you live in that area. You've been brought up in
I
that
did
area.
not say that.
If
I
the
said
majority
those
in
are
your
influences on me. I didn't say I accept them wholeheartedly.
You don't
That's
accept
an
the
absolute lie.
U.S. Constitution? You don't accept the U.S.
Well,
Constitution?
Not totally.
Well, you did
no.
say.
There's many things.
You did say you accepted some. That's the thing. But
Yeah,
and you couldn't
that's
figure
I
out.
accept freedom of
You couldn't
speech.
figure.
I accept freedom of
You
religion.
couldn't figure
That's
out.
true.
You couldn't figure out if there are moral or immoral. You just said you accepted them. So because you accepted them, that must mean they're immoral. So that's what you missed. But you did say you accepted them.
Would you break the U.S. Constitution today?
Sure, parts of it.
Okay, so parts of it you're
enough.
willing to break?
Yeah,
Fine.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I don't have the entire Constitution memorized. The Second Amendment is obviously poorly written. We don't know what well-regulated militia means. There's all sorts of debates over that. I was saying my morality is influenced by how I was raised, and I gave you some background of how I was raised. I'm not a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. That doesn't mean I accept Catholicism. You're putting words in my mouth. It's literally unbelievable that you guys like.
Okay,
We're these religious right people.
Yeah.
Faisal, it's time. Faisal, it's time, my friend.
Yeah, it's time.
It's
I don't
time.
know how. So, Mike, thanks for coming.
No problem. Thank you for your lies. You all have a good day.
And thank you for not knowing what truth even is. So, peace.
Oh my gosh, this guy, he is a joke pretty much, as he was talking about.
For everyone that's listening, if you guys did not know already, Ali is the nice one. My man said, Mike, you are a joke. You're not. Oh, wait a minute. Oof. Bars. I know that got me going for a second.
That's what he said he is, right? That's what he said he is.
Okay, I'm over here. I'm eating, and it caught me off guard. I said, "Wait a minute, what just happened? Did I hear? Did I hear what I thought I just heard?" And then when he added,
tracks is crazy.
and then he said,
dude, I was holding back. I was holding back for so long. And I'm thinking, well, you know what? Let me just hold back as long as I can. And after all that, he just goes off into the wind. And I'm like, I was sort of looking forward to Brother Faiz and Brother Samir questioning him. But to be honest, I'm sort of grateful they didn't, more of the crazy
Yeah.
might have come out.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's at this point in time, it's just Faisal, respect. Remind me never to mess with you ever again, okay? Just remind, just remind.
Oh, this is a very Islamic argument. It's honestly, I
No,
wouldn't
it's
take credit for
no,
it.
no,
It's
it's
one of
true. Don't get me wrong. It's true. We are all nothing in the sight of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala.
yeah.
We're literally nothing. We're less literally, but it's just the way you said it. You said it like it meant something. And nothing. Look at you. Like, wait a minute.
I mean,
It
the
got me
guy
going
is
for a second.
Yeah,
acting.
like
The guy was
your
acting up
dust.
too much. The guy was acting up too much.
No, yeah, he
He's
was.
comparing himself to God. I need to put him on his in his place.
Oh no, he's
That was
actually
it.
saying he's greater than God because he thinks God should adhere to his standards.
Hmm.
So he's
Yeah,
basically
no,
saying,
that's
I want to be God over God.
Yeah, the problem is that Mike sees this as entertainment. He's not here to actually reach any conclusions. It's not, Brother Hassan. You characterized it as him being obsessed with Islam, but I see it as more of him being obsessed with arguing about something, and that just has an Islamic flavor on top of it. I think he just needs to get some hobbies, honestly.
yeah.
No, 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 no.
Anyway,
See, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
the
Why did I say, brother? Yeah, hit it right on the hammer.
He, as always, he's got it. Go ahead, Brother Hassan.
Yeah, I mean, brother Faisal, think about it this way. This man, why did I mention him? Why did I mention him? Going back a year when it came to Muslim streams, and 2 years since I noticed him. Here's the thing: there's videos. There's videos where a guy who doesn't show his face, but you listen to the voice. 99% the same. 1% I'll give for doubt, but 99% the same. That's going back 2 years. That doesn't just go to Muslim or Dawa channels, but Christian and Catholic channels. The fact of the matter is, he's been doing this, I think, Allahu Alam, I could be wrong. Like I said, I gave that 1% chance that I could be wrong, but I think he's been doing this for 2 years now, right? And he started showing his face on Hamza's Den. And like I said, even if it's just a year, people get bored within a month or two. This man has been at it for over a year now.
so
So at
do
this
you
point,
yeah, do
I
you guys
think the
know
fact
what
of the
drives
matter,
these people? Do you have you ever thought about what drives these people?
because it eats them alive, they can't disprove it.
That and the fact that their fitra is telling them that God exists, and unless they spend every possible moment of their reality denying that God exists, right, and actively doing that, they cannot. They will stay restless because every time they do something wrong, right, they know they've done something wrong, and they realize that there is a God, and they have to speak it out loud to prove to themselves. The only reason he's coming on here is because psychologically, right, he's unable to get over this idea that he will be held accountable. He knows this. He just wants to
Hmm.
prove it wrong because the only way his life makes sense to him at this stage in his life, right, is if he comes and disproves Muslims who are true monotheists. So for him, he's basically someone who understands really, in his heart of heart, he understands that God exists, but he has to speak against it to prove to himself and not to anyone else, just to himself, that it could be wrong, that he doesn't have to continue believing in that.
Yeah.
You know what the first one? You guys know what the sad thing is?
What's up, Akhi?
I remember when I actually met a psychiatrist who tried to diagnose me. Literally tried to diagnose me as we're talking. I met
Mhm.
I met him literally at I think it was a restaurant. I met him I met him at some fast food restaurant, and all of a sudden he's assessing me as I'm talking. And then he said, "Do you know you have some sociopathic tendencies?" I said, "Wait a minute. What? Wait. What? Wait. No. What?" He's like, "Yeah." I, I said, "Wait. Sociopath? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You have a lot of sociopathic tendencies." I said, "Bye. I'm done. I'm not even. No. It's good to meet you. Bye bye." So yeah. I mean, I don't. Is that a diagnosis? Is that proper diagnosis? I'm not so sure. But all I know is he kind of hurt my feelings. That's all I remember. And here I see Mike talking about how he needs. See, when I see someone like that, when he says he needs a psychiatrist, that I believe. But me, on the other hand, I think I'm properly normal. I just got to finish for a second.
Yeah, no.
Brother Ali,
We should
I'm
put
just
it on
gonna
the
say
vote.
this one.
No, brother
Put it
Hassan,
on the vote.
brother Hassan, if you say anything slick, you're out.
Anyway,
Well, I
here's the thing.
mean, for the risk of sounding like a snot, I'll just say this: the psychiatrist might have been wrong, but he might not have been completely wrong.
All right, all right.
Brother,
Hassan, stay nice. He's
I'm
got
just
the power
kidding. Come on.
to.
I'm kidding. By the way, I have the same problem. I admit that I have certain sociopathic tendencies.
All right. Anyway, here, here's the
Anyway,
deal. Here's the deal, Ahmad. If you're a sociopath or if you're a psychopath, Islam can uh, Islam can make you improve your nature. Islam can actually make you overcome those tendencies. All right. However, if you're a sociopath or if you're a psychopath, atheism is not going to help you. Liberalism is not going to help you. Right?
mm-hmm.
None of those other theisms are going to help you. Okay, this concept of subjective morality that I am right and everyone else has to bend to my will, that's not going to help you.
Now, he not
So,
only is it not going to help you, it's going to because as a sociopath, you don't have any empathy, or at least you have a very very low feeling of empathy. And so, if there
it's
is no
non-existent.
yeah, exactly. So if there is no subjective morality, then brother Ali, hypothetically, if I take a hammer, right, and I bash your
Uh-huh.
head in, they're just atoms hitting atoms. What's wrong with that?
Wait, why me?
I was about to ask that. Why him?
Well, Akhi, you're the only one with your camera on, so I imagine smashing your head in.
Oh, okay. Wait, what?
Well, here
I
you
don't-
go. There's another camera. Smash my head in now.
Oh my.
Your beard cushions
You
you
know
too
what?
much, Akhi.
Honestly, I just like starting stuff, but let's get.
what is it called? This is being sadistic, right? No.
Sadistic, sociopath.
No,
Either one.
Sort of, yeah, in a
Hassan
sense.
wanting to be beaten up. What we call it?
Masochistic. Masochistic.
Masochist.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I don't want to be beaten up. I just want someone to try it so that I can respond in kind.
You know, anytime I think about the word math, I think of anime lovers. I think of
Assalamu
Goku
alaikum,
Black.
brothers.
Wa
Wa
alaikum
alaikum salam.
assalam wa
Wa alaikum
rahmatullahi wa
salam wa
barakatuh.
rahmatullahi wa
Yeah,
barakatuh.
have a good night.
You have a good
Okay.
night.
Okay.
Good night, Akhi.
Anytime
the
I
way-
think about masochist, I think about Dragon Ball Z Goku Black, where he's getting beat up and he's like, "Yes, give me some more." And I said, "Wait a minute." What kind of-
Anyway, we have a
Go ahead.
suggestion from the chat.
No,
Well, okay, here's the thing:
no.
a sociopath, right, doesn't feel anything and any emotion, and a stoic doesn't show any emotion. So I mean, I don't
All
know.
right. Okay. See, here's the thing. A stoic actually trains themselves
Mhm.
into that position. A sociopath is by nature.
It's born that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
It's like
Thank you,
the
brother Faisal, because I was
talented
getting worried for
versus
a
the
second.
hardworking. But here's the deal. Ali is not the stoic because of that reason. He's the stoic because of a very different reason. And for that,
Yeah,
go back, watch all of our live streams. He has given his reasons.
Mhm.
For those of you who don't remember it, I would recommend watching all of our live streams
All
But
of our
yeah,
videos.
go back and watch all of them. Please do. Like, subscribe, and everything. But anyways, let's move. Let's move on, because
Yeah,
all jokes aside.
brothers, I wanted to talk about something that one of the brothers mentioned earlier. If I recall correctly, he
Uh-huh.
was making an argument in regards to complexity, and that reminded me of this analogy that I'd heard one time. I believe I heard it from Sheikh Uthman bin Farouk, and it's probably been said by others. But essentially, he said that if you were to have, let's say, a bunch of lithium, right, and a bunch of aluminum and glass and a bunch of other materials and metals and so forth, right? And then you were to just have this massive desert, right? And you were to uh, have wind, okay? And so you would essentially expect over millions of years, right? Would you think that there would be the conclusion, the natural conclusion of that would be that you would have an iPhone at the end of that?
Mm.
Yeah.
I mean, even
By the way,
scientists are even saying the concept.
Mike is
Go ahead.
still in the chat. Mike is still in the chat, and I think
And
here's the thing, Mike. I
there we
would
go.
basically challenge you for the next 2 years or so. Just ignore the Muslims, right? If you think we're on the wrong, if you think we've all got this wrong, okay, go ahead, ignore the Muslims. Prove me wrong that you can actually deal with this, right? The fact that for me, the way I describe you and the way I put forth your psychological, I psychoanalyzed you. Prove me wrong. That you don't have to do this for the whole year. Just ignore our Muslim channels. Come back to me a year later and remind me that this is the challenge that we did.
Mm.
Yeah. Brothers, also, there was a question that I wanted to ask Mike, right? But it would make a very interesting discussion in general. But the question was essentially, right, is that if you don't believe in a God, right, then and this, so basically, I've looked into this a bit, but it's called abiogenesis. It's the sort of area of biology where you hypothesize, because we don't have any actual hard evidence, but you hypothesize when non-living became living. Okay, so something which is alive, right, you would define as self-replicating. Okay, so when did you have, the correct combination of materials and chemicals to the point where, out of, a microscopic organism of some sort happened to be created, and it was able to start reproducing? It's something which seems impossible. I mean, how do you have that mixture of materials, and then you suddenly have something which is completely different? So this is something which I found very interesting, and there's not really even any theories, or there's really no, how with most things there are, I mean, there's a bit of fluff, there's a bunch of theories, there's a bunch of hypotheses, but this was something where when I looked a little bit more into it, there was not really much of an explanation. There was always just,
Yeah.
something
So
happened, and then it just happened.
yeah, here's
I
the
mean,
thing with this theory, and
go
Ali,
ahead.
just to
Go ahead. Go
point
ahead. Go
this
ahead.
out, because this is extremely important for our Muslim brothers to understand. When you get into the specifics, you would actually notice that their answer is always a no. Okay, so if you ask them how the how did physics change into chemistry, and how did chemistry change into biology, right? Those answers are not there. What put forth this idea that things can actually start reacting and create amino acids? Amino acids is still, or these things, amino acids, the superstructures of these molecules that we have.
Yeah, and the DNA.
These are still something. These are still some things which are almost impossible to produce unless those enzymes that exist within us are there. Right? We need enzymes that make sure that we're able to create those amino acids. And without that, how is it even possible that biochemistry can start happening? Okay, and that still, even if that amino acid exists, right, that's still not uh, not life. Okay, life doesn't exist because amino acids exist. Let's say that happens, right? First of all, they cannot explain it. There's no explanation for it, and I think it's Dr. James Tour, who uh, who had this debate with this pathetic atheist guy who keeps trying to who keeps trying to act smarter than he is, pretty much.
Oh, that guy who was about the
Yeah,
most disrespectful.
Subur is
Oh
trying
my
to get
god.
him to debate him, but that's the thing, right? I love the way that professor was putting it. He puts it on the board. Do you have any proof? What did he say? Uh, he
He says,
wrote something.
"Show us the work. Show us the work. You made a claim.
Oh,
Show us the who said."
clueless, right?
Mhm.
He keeps writing down clueless. So how did physics turn into biochemistry? How did biochemistry give rise to biology? You have no proof. And he asked a specific question: how did this turn? Oh, rather the end is back. So when you ask those specific questions, it's impossible to get an
Assalamu alaikum
answer.
wa rahmatullahi.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
What I
Wow,
miss?
Oh,
nothing.
yeah,
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway,
according to Brother Faisal, he's nothing.
What?
Well,
Yo,
I mean,
you,
Brother
you,
Faisal
you gotta
isn't
go back.
wrong.
You gotta go back and watch. Okay. Anyway, the
Okay,
thing is,
who was the conversation with at least?
Mike,
Mike.
You remember Mike?
Oh, Mike. Okay.
atheist.
Brothers, I don't even understand why you entertain him anymore at this point.
I mean,
Yeah,
it was fun for a second.
it's just wishful thinking that maybe, just maybe, this is a time that he has something useful to say. Anyway, um,
Go ahead,
where
King.
I'm getting to is when you get into any of these details, right? They have no response for it. Why did something which was unicellular decide to become
Multicellular.
multicellular, right? Why is
Who
it
programmed
that?
it?
Yeah, it's not about program. I mean, for them, their position is that it automatically starts happening. Why is it that the DNA start forming? When you think about the DNA is such a complex molecule, and it's there's so many things in there. There's if I remember correctly, there's multiple proteins that are needed to just put the DNA together, right? How are you doing that? Where are you getting the code that is required to put together a DNA or an RNA or whichever molecule you want to put together that gives life meaning, right? That gives rise to life as we know it. Okay, and then even that's one question. The other side is, how does, when everything of that sort is existing in a body, how does it become dead? Why? How do you explain that, right? And then ask those questions. Like, they have no answers to any of these questions. Ask them about the eye. Why did something that does not have any eyes, why did life suddenly decide to have eyes? Why does it need to look for light and make meaning of what is around us? Why do we need to hear? How does something that has no concept of hearing all of a sudden decide, no, we need to hear this? Why does something that has no concept of vision decide that there needs to be some sort of a vision to it? Right? These things, they have no clue about what they're talking about. These people are ignorant, and they're just arrogant in their ignorance. This
Narcissist.
is, yeah, it's just like this guy. When you start asking him questions, he's trying to dilly dally and start talking about, oh, what about the Neanderthals and this and that. We're asking you specific questions. You're just trying to throw red herrings out. Is that what this is? I mean, even if I give him, okay, fine, whatever you want to say about Neanderthals, I agree with you. Explain to me how life came to be. You've got no answer.
After a while, we honestly should have, in hindsight, we all should have realized that the very moment he said he's using it, and this is where, and I like how Brother Hassan peeped that the light in my brain. You saw my eyes lit up. So the moment he said it's subjective understanding, and I gave him credit for being upfront and saying it's subjective understanding. But after a while, after a while, it goes from being amusing to just sad, to say the least.
Yeah,
Because I go ahead.
Mike is the joke, essentially. When he comes on our streams, he is the joke. He doesn't realize this. He's the pathetic joke that keeps playing out.
Woo!
And we get used to it so much that it's no longer funny. And that's what happened.
His reasoning was completely circular. So basically, he argued
It's not
that
circular. It's non-existence. It's pathetically non-existence. I have to use the word
Yeah.
pathetic because of how much he doesn't even understand what the words he's using. Like, the only reason why he believes in things is because he grew up in that society. That was his reason. Okay,
Hey, he said
the
it.
only
It was
reason
upfront.
why he accepts certain rules is because he's American and he grew up as a Catholic. That's it. That was the only reason why certain moral concepts are more relevant to him, versus whatever happened to that scientific group department trying to find.
the Higgs boson.
So Higgs boson piece. So they call it the God particle, Brother Yahya, but that's not really what it is. They just call it that because of the idea that it's a very elusive particle. It was something that was theorized, but they never witnessed it. So that's essentially how they view God. That's why they called it the God particle. That nobody's seen God, but everybody sort of theorizes that God exists. So that was the link to it. So ignore it. It's a pretty unrealistic naming of that Higgs boson particle, the God particle, as they used to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, brother
Agreed.
Fazla 2.0. Do you have any comments to make? I know you were brother. I know you were looking forward to putting Mike in his place, and you didn't get the opportunity. Is there anything you want to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel sad for the guy. I feel bad. He's really dealing with an existential crisis, but the question is, does he have the psychology to handle it? I feel like he's trapped himself in a position where he can't go left and he can't go right, but he
Yep.
doesn't have a valid justification to either go left or to go right. And it's just crazy. At that point, what I wanted to say was like, look, everyone knows that atheism is a valueless offer. So just take it, take the dice, roll it, put in all the religions in there, and just do that. Because I don't think you have the intellectual ability. I don't even think you have the psychological ability to humble yourself, because if you really think about it, what the brothers were saying earlier with the D-Alter and the other brother here that was making the scientific argument, I don't think Mike realizes that the argument against a creator is going to be very clear very soon. Like, the more technological scientific development that comes out, you're not going to escape it. It will come, and when it comes, what are you going to do then? You're just going to sit there and say no, I don't feel like it. I mean, you could do that, but like I said, like, are you equipped to handle this topic? And at the end of the day, you're going to pay the price for it yourself, and we're going to pay the price ourselves for whatever we decide, and that's just it. Like, everyone is responsible for themselves. Like, I really do feel bad for the guy, but do what you have to do, man. I don't care.
We've given him straight so many times, Ahi. It's just he has no excuse right now, right?
Let's call it for what it is. Let's really call it for what it is. It's just straight up emotion.
It's arrogance. He can't beat out his own arrogance.
And here's the thing, right? A lot of times when these atheists come to you, right, they package their reasoning as a scientific / rational argument, but
Yeah,
when
he used the
you
word reason in
uncover
the
it,
beginning too.
yeah,
Mm,
when you uncover it, you actually realize that most of the time this is it's really a moral argument. It's really a question of um,
mhm,
and the question really is, at times I feel sometimes it's about, why wasn't God there when such and such thing was happening to me? This is
mhm.
really where it comes down to, right? And this is probably what the problem with Mike is. Maybe he got beaten up as a kid in his schoolyard or whatever else might be the case, and that just turned off for him. That no,
Man,
I don't
Oh,
think
man.
God
you're on
exists
him.
because yeah, I mean,
I
this happened.
mean, brother Faisal, maybe he got beaten up. Maybe he got beaten up. But here's the thing, with with someone like Mike, and I'll be very honest
I'm
in
not
my assessment.
Hassan.
Yeah,
I'm not minimizing anything here, but it, a lot
yeah,
of times these are the reasons that these things happen. These are the reasons why some of these people turn against God, just because they got beaten up. They couldn't deal with bullying. They couldn't deal with the realities of
Yeah.
life. I mean, for me, I fine, bullying is a problem. It shouldn't happen as much, but that's how kids learn to deal with life. You stop that, and you basically telling the kid not to grow up.
Well, I'll say this.
uh,
As someone who has some experience with bullies, it's a double-edged sword, really. I'll just say that. So there are some
Don't
people
nobody
who
bully
it's
me. I had a cane. They getting hit. I bet Ali going.
bro. Hey man, look, I'm not gonna mess with you. I mean, at this point, I've learned to mess with brother Faisal, with you, with brother Yahya. I feel like I can mess with brother Hassan until he gets mad. But then that's another thing. But anyway,
no, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When it comes to bullies, because I had a little bit of experience on this myself, my view of it was simple. Either you keep getting beat up or you beat them up.
oh no no
Tick.
no no. No,
Either you
That's
stay
true.
when
down
you
or either you stay down or you throw the punch. That's the way I
nah,
look at
bro.
it.
For me, when you had African parents, that no, trust me,
No, no,
no.
but the thing is,
I was scared of them more than the other. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hassan grew up in Pakistan. Hassan, like
Oh, okay, okay.
we never come up with this. Oh, we're getting bullied at school. That's
Yeah,
never something you go and talk to your parents about. You deal with it.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Either you
We
go,
did honestly. Yeah.
either you go
Yeah.
with your friends and you basically just make sure you've got more people than they do, right? Or
I mean,
you
but
better
brother Faisal, this wasn't just Pakistan. This wasn't just Pakistan. Like
this
this was
this
the
is
case for me in Pakistan, in Austin, Texas, in Kuala Lumpur. It's not like it was just Pakistan. The way I see it, it's always been that way. People can make it out to be that, oh, these are the options in this society or that society, but they're bad options. At the end of the day, the only option you have is, are you going to be the guy who gets beaten up, or are you gonna be the guy who responds?
Hassan. I'm
So
sorry to say this, but people who like this is this idea that you shouldn't bully anyone, right? And see, men are naturally aggressive, right? Men are
Yeah, we are.
naturally
We are.
aggressive. Okay, when it
Yeah.
comes down to our nature, right? When
Mm.
women start crying, that's in their
oh
nature.
whoa whoa
Women, it's in their nature.
hey
Like,
yo
have you seen a woman who's going through
Hey,
that
yo.
time of the month?
He said,
They
"Hey
start
yo."
bro,
Hey
Faisal,
yo.
I'm just messing with you, okay. I'm just messing with you, okay. I agree.
He said,
And for men,
"Hey
what do?
yo."
When we get
We
when
want to
we're out
we
of
want to punch
control,
stuff.
what happens to us?
We
We want to punch out.
want to
We
punch
want to let
stuff.
it out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Men
Yeah.
are naturally aggressive. You see somebody weak, the natural tendency is to oppress them. Okay, it's really, that's why you're trained as a Muslim. You're trained to control all of that, right? And to point that aggression to the right, in the right direction. But a society, a wild society, a society that doesn't care, right? That society would basically teach the people to deal with bullying as part of nature. You in schools and in colleges and in these type of places, you're basically allowed to deal with these bullies the way it naturally, right? When you turn this into an artificial situation where bullies are artificially just put down through social media, through rules and anything else like that, you're you're hurting both the bully and the person who's being bullied, because the bully now is going to take out some of the weight, and the one who was bullied, now he doesn't know how to deal with it. Let's say he ends up in a situation, right? Let's say you go through a war, okay? Now you've trained a whole lot of people to not be able to take any bullying whatsoever. I mean, the other guy is coming at you with guns blazing, and you're like, hey, guns are not allowed. That's what your response is going to be in
Okay,
a situation of war?
this is why I don't mess with Brother Yahya, everyone. This is why.
Yo.
And
Yeah, but
you see,
Yo, what?
you know what, Brother Yahya?
I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
I'm
That's actually what happens.
it. I'd rather choose you than 911, Afi. So just, I'm serious. I go ahead. Go ahead.
and that's the thing, right? We need to train men to be men, and not just suppress
And
them.
don't suppress your. It's two extremes. Don't suppress your emotions, because either way, men, men, both genders actually, we have to be taught on how to handle our emotions. Because when we don't,
Yeah,
when we're not taught on how to properly handle our emotions, whether or not we repress them or whether or not we let them out too much, what can happen is an overload. We start living by our emotions, and it goes with how we see our environment, especially when you, let's say, for example, you grew up in a time of war with your country, and you haven't been taught to close down those, to get closure with those emotions. So what happens? You start lashing out. Either you blame the country, or what do you start doing? You start saying, "Wait a minute, this country says Islam. They go by Islam." So you project that hatred for the country or for the situation. You project it to the religion. Then you say, "Oh, Islam must be wrong because it does this. Look what's going on in my country." So there are many debilitating damages that can occur when one does not know how to properly deal with their emotions. And when it comes to men, even just someone who closes down all the time and doesn't show any emotion, that's not showing emotion is different than holding it in, because not showing emotion, you could know how to deal with it and still not show it. It's a display. But not dealing with your emotions, suppressing it, that's where the issue is, because at any moment, as a man, we're naturally physical. So we'll show it in an aggressive way, whether or not we'll do dangerous things, which we look at the prison system. A lot of people that are in prison are the ones who lashed out aggressively because they did not know how to properly handle their emotions. But if we take it to a more of a religious context, not being using your emotion should always come secondary. That's why in the Quran, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala talks about those who do not reason as the worst of people. The ones who do not reason, meaning use reason, use logic. Don't go by your emotions. Emotions should never be the primary act, the primary standard. It should come secondary. So what happens if you make it primary? You make everything subjective. If you make emotions the reason why you don't follow a particular religion, congratulations, you just made it subjective, meaning you have no objective criteria anymore. So this is why understanding emotions, learning how to deal with them, and also learning that it should never be used as a primary reason to follow a particular group of people, to follow a particular group of faith, because at that moment, anybody can come and make you feel better, and now you're thinking he's right, or his way
yeah.
is right, or the religion that you grew up with the country may not be practicing it correctly, so you start blaming the religion for what the country's doing wrong based on your emotions.
And
So
Brother
this is
Ali,
the debilitating issues that emotions can come through.
And Faisal, you can't go right now, by the way.
uh,
You gotta wait. Ali, here's a question to the panel. Here's a question to the
What's
panel.
up?
Good.
What's up?
Here's a question to the panel. What is, if you want to use a rule of thumb, what is the rule of thumb for where you have to use emotions more than logic?
For me, again, and you guys can let me know. But when it comes to your spouse, there are times where, because I've seen it with my parents. There are some times when my dad's talking with my mom, and he realized, no, you can't use logic here. No, it's straight emotions, especially when you wanna, with intimacy within a husband and a wife, it's straight emotion.
Okay,
So
that's one place, but
yeah,
it's sort of broader than that. Anyone else, Sahi?
amen. But I still got the victory. I'm good.
Did you say logic over emotions or emotions
No,
over
No,
emotions
logic?
over.
emotions over logic.
Probably children,
What would be the rule
maybe
of thumb?
babies. I don't know. Or
So wait,
rule of thumb.
sorry, what?
I said when you're dealing with. Is the question who are you dealing with to
Yeah.
use? I would say maybe children.
Okay.
Geriatrics. I would say geriatrics, the elderly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good one.
Samir?
This is gonna have like many exceptions, but I would say like with retaliation, it's like you do the same thing back. So if they have an emotional fueled say offense against you, right, then you retaliate with something on that same magnitude. Although I would say that it's superior to act in a rational way back. It shows that you're the bigger man in that particular scenario.
It's actually a very interesting point that you made. So in all of these situations, those are all valid situations. In all of these situations, what you would actually find as a common underlying theme here is that you're in a position of power, and the person you're dealing with is in a position or weaker than you. So whenever you're dealing with someone weaker than you, whenever you have the authority, whenever you have the power, right? Whenever you're the one in control, that's the time to be more emotionally intelligent and
That's
not
mercy.
just being logical. Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you could say practicing mercy is using emotion, because
Yeah.
the logical thing for me to do is enact justice or to punish you. But if I'm using my emotions, then I'm saying, you know what, that's compassion. I'm showing your
Yeah,
compassion
exactly, exactly.
oh, I get it. When Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says His compassion exceeds His wrath, makes sense.
That and the Prophet ﷺ when he practiced it, right?
That's how-
Like, for example, I remember it was, I think it was, I'm forgetting who the Sahaba was, but a young Sahaba who was helping the Prophet ﷺ, right? He would run errands for him. So one time the Prophet ﷺ gave him an errand to do, and on his way, he met these other kids and he started playing with them and he forgot the errand. When the Prophet ﷺ came by, he asked him about it and he had totally forgotten about it. The Prophet ﷺ, instead of punishing him, he basically just let it go and he moved ahead, right? So things like that there's a reason why the Prophet ﷺ was the greatest human being, because he showed us when to be emotionally intelligent and when to be logically coherent and deal with things logically, right? And again, it comes to you when you're the one in power. You need to be more emotionally intelligent, not just
That's
deal
true.
with things in a logical manner. You have to be emotionally intelligent when you're dealing with people who are less powerful than you, when you're the qayyim over them, right? When you're the one who are the one in authority over them. So that's sort of a rule of thumb. Essentially, whenever you're dealing with people, that's how you do it. um, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we cover that part, because it's not all about logic. Yes, logic leads you to the truth, right? But when you're dealing with people, it's about compassion and following the prophetic way.
Logic
By the way,
logic guides you on where to place your emotions.
yeah, logic guides you to the truth, right? But your
Mhm.
interaction with people has to be done. Logic plays no role in your interaction with people, and that's why women are better than men most of the time when it comes to relationships. That's why they have so many. They can actually deal with so many relationships in that sense, right? So just another thing, I do want to make sure that we talk about the upcoming presentations and the yeah, sister, what can I do? It's in your
The
DNA.
moment you said that, you could tell us.
No, I think
Go ahead,
she
Akhi.
said this for something else. Sister Fatma said something right before it.
Wait, was it
Oh, everything's
for?
okay.
Oh no, I think it's for this. Oh, my apologies. My apologies. Okay.
All right.
So sorry. I thought it was my apologies.
Yeah. So about the presentations, I spoke with
No,
Ali.
no, no. Let me make sure that I know you brothers have spoken, but I want to make sure that our audiences know that we've got things lined up. So I just want to speak sh- um, very shortly, just give everybody a taste of what's coming up. So, Brother Lee, do you want to talk about your presentation very quickly?
So yeah, I told everyone in the beginning of the stream that I was planning on doing a presentation about logos theology, and, logos philosophy, but Brother Faisal 2.0, Brother Faisal and I, we had a conversation, and because he wanted to focus on Paul, so since the whole logos theology is in regards of both the Bible or the Old and New Testament, we decided it would be best if we collaborate and put our works together and do a whole Paul and Hellenism work together. And we do plan on making it multiple parts, like part one, part two, part three. And this is the reason why it's been delayed a little bit more. But that's one of the collaborations that he and I are planning on doing. But Brother Faisal 2.0, anything else you want to say on that?
Yeah, so I wanted to make it again, as Ali said, about Paul, and the theme for me is like disqualifying Paul, and then we're going to have subtopics where Ali will start with, how it is that Paul uses logos theology and why that disqualifies him, and then I'm going to most likely use the church fathers, and some passages from the Bible to disqualify Paul. So it's basically, the 13th apostle, the false apostle. We'll come up with some sort of header for that. But yeah, that's basically it. The time frame that I've been given is like first week of December, so that's about 40 days or something. So God willing, I'm going to put the presentation together. And disclaimer, it's not my research, but the information that I have, I would say, is compelling, and that's why I'm going to present it, and it will have all the primary sources. So yeah, God willing, we're gonna put Paul in the coffin, and that's it.
Yeah. And we've actually given
Nice.
Brother Faisal a lot of presentations to do. He has beef with Paul, and
Oh yeah, I want to
inshallah,
know.
yeah, he want to call him out, and let's see, because there's like when you're
Paul is a nothing,
talking
by the
about
way.
Paul, when we're talking about Paul, a lot of Muslims don't know who this guy is, right?
A lot of Christians don't know who he is either.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Mm.
true. However, he's been given like it's like
A
the
free
village
pass. A
clown.
free pass.
The village clown is being treated as the prime minister. Really, that's the situation that Paul is in, right? So it's important to understand who he is, right? So what is his character? What can we tell about his character? That's one of the things hopefully we can look into, right?
Brother Faisal, I don't know where you went yesterday, but all I know is you came back with bars, man. Wherever you went, you came back. You came back built different. Seriously, man. With much respect.
No,
Mashallah.
I'm
Now,
still
so
away, akhi. I'm still away. I'm not
you're
home
still
yet.
there.
Yeah.
Mashallah. Okay, no worries.
So that, and then the second thing about Paul that we need to understand is how he contradicts Jesus's teaching, and that's something that hopefully we can look into and deal with. So that's two, and then something that will come out of this is the way Paul talks about God versus the way Jesus talks about God versus the way Christians believe who God is. because those are not the same things, right? Those are actually three different, completely different theologies, right? And it's important for us as Muslims to understand that what the Christians of today believe in, it doesn't even align with what Paul believed in, and definitely doesn't align with what Jesus believed
To
Yep.
add to what Faisal just said there, I'm not gonna lie. The first time I discovered this character Paul and figured out what was really going on, I was shocked. Like,
in.
how this could take place is actually hilarious, and when you see it, you're going to understand that the Western world is under severe propaganda, severe religious propaganda, and you're going to see firsthand how it is that they are covering up for Paul, how they are disguising Paul, representing, reinterpreting, and these reinterpretations are severe, very severe. So hopefully we're going to make it clear. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. One of the most shocking things I've seen, more shocking than the Trinity.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. All right, and then for me, I'm actually working on a project where I'm looking into textual criticism as we go through our uh, the Tanakh series. What I've found very interesting is the way the Christians and the Jews and essentially the Western academics, how they uh, use, or the techniques they use and what they do to um, prove certain text is reliably historical, right? And I'm not saying that when I use the word historical, I'm being very purposeful, because it's not necessarily revelation. It can be scripture just because it's part of the Bible, right? And it's being held in a scriptural authority, but it's not necessarily um that. By the way, Brother Faisal, if you want to stick around for a few more minutes, that will be fine. Let me know.
Only a few more minutes, brother.
Yeah. So what I'm going to be focusing on is um, what is this textual criticism that we keep hearing, but as Muslims, we definitely don't understand fully what that is. Then I'm going to do a comparison with Hadith sciences. So I'm going to do a second presentation, hopefully sometime, on Hadith sciences, and then inshallah, basically we'll round it up by determining why this whole thing doesn't make any sense to apply the Christian or the Western academic uh, uh, their methodology, why it doesn't apply to the Quran, definitely, and why even for the Hadith it doesn't make sense to use it, right? And how in all of this the Hadith sciences provide a more comprehensive, clear, and superior proof of truth than what we have through that, right? Through textual criticism. So that will be an interesting comparison, hopefully, and hopefully very informative as well. Ali?
All right, Ali, you better let me go, bro. You
Yep.
better let me go, bro. All right, guys, I gotta go. Peace and blessings.
All right, Akhi. Jazakallah khair for coming.
All
Assalamu
right.
Assalamu
You know
alaikum
what?
wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I was just
At least trying
I
to
was
keep
just
me. Go ahead, keep me, bro. Tell me to
nah,
stay.
bro. I was just saying, or else what? Like that was
Look, man, only Faisal 1.0 can keep me past my bedtime. Okay, the rest of you.
Wait a minute. Wait. So you're acknowledging he's the better Faisal, huh?
I acknowledge my elders, brother. There's simple as that, you know.
Bro, what are you, Roman Reigns? You acknowledge him? Come on, bro. Come on now.
Of course. I acknowledge all my
Don't you?
brothers. I
Don't
acknowledge
you
all my
acknowledge? Okay.
brothers.
Who?
Wait. Do you
Whoa?
acknowledge me?
Who? Who?
Who? What?
Oh, Oh, my bad. I watched. I'm still hip to WWE for a little bit of wrestling. But anyways,
Ooh,
yeah. So 2.0. Do you acknowledge me?
of course.
Good. You can go. You can go.
All right. Shout out to Mike. Mike, you can go to sleep. Just don't drive yourself crazy. Take it easy. Tomorrow's a new day. Try again, and God willing, it'll work out.
Why do we keep losing DeAndre?
Maybe his connection is going on because I did hear some background from him. So yeah, I think
All
he's
right.
busy with family.
All right,
All right.
Faisal.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
All right.
So okay, I will close now for the night.
Pretty much. I do
All
have
right.
to go get to sleep. I'm checking out tomorrow, so I'm on my way
Okay.
home
Okay.
tomorrow. So yeah.
Safe travels, like email. Man, let's sponsor the guide your trip back.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. So anybody else came up other than Mike and Chris?
No, that's about it really. And for me,
All right.
see, I've been trying to figure out if it will be better off doing our roundtable on Saturdays because that seems to be
I think
when
so.
people are available. So yeah, I do think we can switch it to Saturdays, but a little bit early on Saturdays. Maybe like instead of 9 p.m., let's wait 6:30, 7 p.m.
Brother, I think
Yeah,
the
that's
bigger
fine.
the bigger problem is that in general, I've just been seeing less and less Christians, in particular, on any of the Dawa streams. Like even Rumsey streams. I mean, they're pretty much barren these days.
Oh, there's a reason for that, right? There's a lot of misinformation that has been spreading out, right? So Christians, I have found that what they're trying to do is just muddy the water. It's not a bad thing for us, if you want to speak about it this way, because essentially the people who would come up now are the people who are sincere. What we've stopped seeing now are these troublemakers, most of the time, right? The people who would come up with non-question and just with arguments, right? There's going to be less of them, and it's going to start filtering out. People who are sincere, they would inshallah keep coming up. Yes, we will still get the crazies, and you cannot avoid them, right? But that's going to be the case.
You know what, Akhi? You think we'll be able to have a surprise stream this week talking about just reacting to the debate?
If it's going to be a surprise stream, why would we even announce it?
I didn't say what day or the time.
Okay.
I'm not
Let's see.
Fawad, all right?
Let's keep it a surprise. Whether it's gonna be this week, next week, or some other week.
Shoot. It
But
might
I
be
think
it might be yesterday for all we know.
I think the debate was pretty interesting. What I found really useful is what the brother covered, Brother Central Dawa. He covered a lot of different prophecies. So what we've done on our channel so far is we've covered individual prophecies at a time, right? We've not put the case together, and it's going to be interesting to take a look at the case that he built and basically talk about it holistically rather than talk about those individually, because we've already talked about those individually, or we may end up talking about them at some point in time. But it's going to be useful to put those together as a holistic argument that yes, it's talked about in I think it's Deuteronomy 18:18, right? And then Isaiah 53, Isaiah what's the other one? Isaiah 42, right?
You have Isaiah 53, you have Daniel 9, you have Isaiah 7,
Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, right?
you have
And then
Zechariah 12. You have a lot of
Paraclete and all of these things, right? So you put all of those together, right? And the songs, right? Songs 15. When you put all of those together and when you look at that evidence holistically, it's a reasonably strong argument, right? That's how I see it, and if I think he actually put forth a lot of them. We can talk about the ones that he did not bring up, right? And we can probably take a look at it from that perspective. I don't think David Wood has anything that we need to respond to. It was honestly nothing from David Wood other than just nonsense
As
argument,
usual.
red herrings, and non-arguments, essentially.
As
Right.
usual.
Yeah. So I don't think we even need to consider responding to that.
Okay. Very well.
Yeah.
For old time's sake, maybe just a few of the points.
He's been refuted so many times. It's just,
bro.
It's just annoying to even listen to him.
He's a glass hammer. I think.
A glass cannon.
A glass hammer.
Glass. Wait, I haven't heard of a glass hammer. What's a glass hammer?
You try to smash someone and then you just destroy yourself.
Oh, you try to smash them, but then the glass. Oh, I get it.
I mean, he's hammer time, isn't he?
Man, y'all kids are just, whatever.
Kids, man, I could be a great grandfather's friend. Never know that. You don't know how old I am.
Man, look, you were there around the Ice Age, so let's not even get it to your age, you know?
Man, Ice Age, kid stuff. I was old back then.
Oh, okay.
Yo, what if I was one of the Neanderthals that Mike was talking about?
Well, them brothers came after the Ice Age, apparently.
You said what?
Apparently, them brothers came after the Ice Age.
Bro, honestly, oh yeah.
Well,
Every time I think about Ice Age, I think about the movie, the DreamWorks movie. I love those movies
Seriously?
growing up. Hey, bro,
Seriously?
come on now. It's the squirrel for me, bro. The squirrel.
Slot?
And
No, it wasn't the square.
you know what?
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
What was it? Oh, DeAndre's back. Mashallah.
It was something like a squirrel. I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
Like,
It was a slot.
Like a saber. No, that one like saber-toothed squirrel that kept on trying to get his acorn, but he always lost it.
What are we talking about?
Well,
Walaikum
we're
assalam.
talking about the Ice Age, the movie.
It's before his time. Why are we even talking about this?
Exactly.
Because we're talking about my childhood, okay? I was there during the Ice Age.
I knew it.
Anyway, all right. We were gonna wrap up, DeAndre. DeAndre, you are gonna do a presentation as well, so we should talk about it very quickly. Sorry.
What happened?
Yeah, we were talking earlier. We were talking about the different presentations that are coming up. Do you want to just give a quick roundup of what you're looking into? There's a couple of things that we had a discussion on. One was
okay, so there's a couple of things that I'm looking into that I have no problem presenting. I would just have to get the presentations together. The first would be the corruption of the Old Testament as attested to by the Old Testament itself. So as far as Jeremiah chapter 8 verse 8, 2 Kings 22, and Nehemiah chapter 8, all of those passages basically saying that the Old Testament or the Torah has been corrupted, or their Torah has been corrupted and lost. And then I would probably do that, go through those things, and then I would do church father quotations of church fathers actually saying the Jews took out some passages. So that's a pretty interesting one. Another one that actually Brother Faisal recommended to me is New Testament misquotations of the Old Testament. So like in the Gospel of Matthew, where he misquotes Hosea chapter 11 verse 1, and he talks about a Nazarene, and he talks about all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another interesting topic. And yeah, that is. I mean, I can do a presentation on the attestation or the corruption of the Torah as attested by the Old Testament. I'll just have to get. I have all the sources already. I would just have to kind of put them into a PowerPoint, and then kind of send it over to the brother so he can do all of the visual stuff that he does. Because yeah, and if there's any topics that you guys think are pretty interesting that you want me to look into, that you think that it would be right up my alley to do some research about it and to present on it, then inshallah, let me know. Put it in the chat, or
Yeah.
put it in the any of the videos that I have. Go subscribe to Islam God Answers, by the way, where you will find quality rebuttals to stupid arguments that Christian missionaries make all the time, and you will find other stuff like that. So go subscribe if you want to see Ali's wish come true, and I take all of you guys' jobs, and pretty soon I'll be running the show. So, with that, I don't know what other better way to end it than that. So that's it.
Cheers.
Brothers
All
want to
right.
chime in?
I just want to add that we
ahead.
will continue the Bible versus Quran series, and that's going to happen. It will be part of it will be something that we will have going on as we continue on this channel. We'll see what the next few topics would be, inshallah, and we'll let you know when the next presentation on that specific topic would be. So with that, I think Brother Hassan, Brother Samir, any words? Oh my gosh, agnostic! Why are you here right when we're about to end the stream? We would need
Bro,
to verify
we
you.
asked for it. We asked for it.
Hey Ali, hey Ali.
What's up,
I guess I don't have a punishment today, don't I?
bro?
Ali,
Ooh. You know what?
let's just make sure. Agnostic, can you turn on your
Yeah.
camera if you want to come on?
You know
Oh,
what?
he ran
Oh,
away.
he left.
That's
You know,
perfect.
Faisal, DeAndre just reminded me it's time for a history lesson. And yes, I'm being petty just because of DeAndre. He knows what he did yesterday. So, everyone, first of
I'm an
all,
innocent man guilty of,
make
or not guilty
make
of
sure
nothing.
make sure DeAndre does not leave. Everyone, make sure DeAndre stays here. You're not going anywhere.
Ali, Brother Hassan and Brother Samir, they need the last word. So are you gonna make
Dang
them
it.
wait for the last word, or are you
I mean,
saying you're gonna take the last word?
you know, you guys can have the last word after my history lesson because I really want to punish DeAndre for a second.
Well, I mean, look, here's
All
the
right.
thing. On one condition. On one condition.
What's up?
On one condition. You're timed for exactly 4.5 minutes.
4.5. Wait a minute. 4.5 minutes. Why not 5?
You see, guys, I have to go take care of my sister's
No.
neighbor's cousin's cat. So I will see you guys later, and I hope all of you brothers and sisters in the chat take
DeAndre,
care, inshallah ta'ala. I hope to see you soon.
DeAndre, you are
Subscribe to
not
Islam
going
God
anywhere.
Answers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
No.
wa barakatuh. My cat
Wa
is about.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Akhi, run.
You see, look, he's running. You're running.
You see, Ali. You see, Ali. Here's the problem. I just
All
found
right,
out that my male cat has just had a litter, so I have to kind of take care of that real quick. So I can't unfortunately be here for the awesome history lesson. But
keep running, DeAndre. Your time is coming. Keep running, bro.
All right.
All right, Juan. It's okay.
Hassan, Samir, brothers. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, Brother Hassan, should I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, son.
Okay. I think it was an interesting stream. We went back and forth with Mike again, so I don't really think that was all that productive, but it was nice talking to you guys. And also, I wanted to add on. I presume that you guys have already heard, but I believe it was 4 days ago. But YouTube Shorts has been revamped a little bit. They have a new option where you can essentially extend them to 3 minutes instead of 1 minute. I was wondering if you guys would like utilize that, and especially with you, DeAndre, because you have some refutations, right? And some refutations are pretty quick, and shorts usually spread around a lot more, right? So I think that could be a tremendous da'wah opportunity, or especially because I actually looked at your guys' shorts. It's been about a month since you guys posted, but if you have
Yeah.
Wait,
3
what did they do?
shorts,
They
it's like
they
TikTok now.
so shorts they expanded it because shorts have a maximum time limit of 1 minute. So what the brother is saying is that 4 days ago they expanded the limit, so now you can actually have shorts up to 3 minutes long.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So I think that could be a very effective da'wah opportunity. These reach out a lot further, and so especially
I might gotta use that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you should utilize
Yeah.
for
a
some
quicker,
quicker
less substantive rebuttal where I don't have to really show anything on screen. I can just record on my phone. Because a lot of the times when I actually show stuff on screen, I use computer to record because then I can actually show lexicons and I can show verses, etc. But if I don't really have to, and I can just laugh at some argument, all I have to do is just record the arguments and then deliver the quick refutation.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
I didn't know
No,
that actually.
and I haven't. I know I haven't. I actually have to renew my my
Your job?
subscription. No, my subscription to this one AI that I'm using for shorts. So inshallah there'll be more shorts coming. And thank you for the heads up on this. So now it's more because it takes a lot for me actually to get the shorts going on without the AI. But now inshallah I'll start this week.
Inshallah. Yeah, and so also, brother DeAndre, I left a message in the back chat. I think it could be a bit relevant to you, just in case if you need it, akhi. And so yeah, with that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Inshallah. Wa alaikum assalam wa
Wa
rahmatullahi
alaikum
wa
salam
barakatuh.
wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, Brother Hassan.
Yes, alhamdulillah, it was a good stream. Even with Mike coming in, I think it helped. I think I think it could potentially help people who are looking into the Deen, and they can understand, uh, the psychology of certain people, and how this has been mentioned to us uh, in the Quran. Alhamdulillah. And overall, I would say this whole stream was pretty good, pretty beneficial. It was a pleasure being here, talking to you brothers, and inshallah, I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, it's interesting how Mike actually proved so much in the Quran, right? The idea that they worship their own selves as God, right? That's one. The other thing that we saw from him was how this concept of them just following through on something because of their ancestors. They saw the ancestor doing it, and that's the reason why they're doing it. And we see this with Mike as well, that he accepts that as a sort of a default position, even though he disagrees with certain aspects of it. He cannot establish any position on his own, definitely. He's taking what he's been taught and basically working with that. He cannot come up with a default position all on his own. Anyway, it's really interesting. And Jazakallah khair, Brother Hassan, for coming in.
Welcome. Yes, thank you for having me. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.
DeAndre, you've been absent half the time.
What'd you say?
You've been absent half the time today. What happened, Akhi?
Oh, no. I just had to step out to take care of some things. But everything is well, alhamdulillah. It's just that my brother, my little brother, would need
your brother's cousin's mom's extra cousin on his fifth side, something like that.
Something like that. No, I'm just playing. Everything is well, alhamdulillah. But very interesting conversation that I had with Chris. I didn't think he was understanding my point, and I'll rephrase that. I think he just wasn't responding properly, because all he had to do is provide evidence from the context of Genesis that his interpretation makes the most sense, and he can't really do that because there's no contextual nuances. Like, if you go to Isaiah 53, he can prove it. He can try to prove it there because it's more contextual. There's more things to consider. But Genesis 3:15 there's no way to ultimately prove one interpretation has more hermeneutical soundness over the other. And so we have to just conclude that there are two alternative valid interpretations that are equally possible, and it doesn't definitively apply to anyone. All right. Yeah, so I will probably do a presentation on the corruption of the Old Testament. I have some sources on that, so I can just gather them and, do that, inshallah. But we have a lot of presentations lined up. As I've said, we have a lot of presentations lined up. It's crazy. And if you want to see me take all these guys' jobs, go subscribe to Islam God Answers. With that being said, interesting stream. And I hope that was a benefit.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, guys.
Wa alaikum assalam. And
Wow.
with that, we'll end it. We won't give Ali or myself the last words.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.